Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AGL Relegations for Season 6. Today, we're going to have a matchup. Well, our first matchup, actually, will be Aggro Dashes Only versus Gridlock. This will be the Plat Relegations here, and I am Dr. Thanatos. Joined with me here on this segment is Dinosaur. Dino, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I snuck in a nap after some of the SPL games, feeling pretty refreshed, pretty excited to see some more Smite.
That's exactly
I
what we
snuck in.
want to hear here. More Smite is all anybody could ever ask for. So I say, why not jump right into these picks and bans here? And with this benevolence hot fix here, do you think there's any characters that may that were getting a ton of love there with that benevolence that are may have fallen off here now that item is not really that viable?
I mean, might see a slight shift towards sort of away from those gods who could make use of benevolence and particularly animosity. Something like a Bologna we saw where it was being picked up, and so people might shy away from that, but you can still pick up the animosity just much later on. So yeah, I think it might change a little bit, but for the most part, benevolence was just kind of plug and play. You could just build it on anybody and it was just good.
Yeah, benevolence just being a lot of free gold in XP for basically just existing. So with that being gone, you definitely have to actually play a little bit to farm out correctly. And farming pretty well is Tiamat there, which is going to be the ban there for aggro dashes, while Gridlock bans out that Athena, that Tiamat, those minions just being unstoppable, it feels like, and that global Athena pressure is just next level scary.
Yeah, I think Athena has sort of waned a little bit in her scariness, but just having to deal with that global ultimate, it's always in the back of your mind. You have to be like, okay, where's the Athena? What's she doing? Can we really take this engagement? Is her ult up? Things like that. It's easier just to ban something to get it just out of the way and keep things a little simpler for you.
Well, something that it definitely seems a little more flavor of the month here after these bow builds have shown up here with this mid-season update. The Artemis, being a ban here in these top three is not. You asked somebody that 2 seasons ago if Artemis would ever be a top three band, and they would be laughing in your face right now. But she is very, very strong and scary right now, as well as two of these newer gods that Gridlock banned out here with these Gilgamesh and Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah, Artemis just really probably the top Silver Branch abuser currently, and that's why she's getting a lot of love there. And Morgan, I mean, is weird for me, right? At times she feels very overpowered, and like Hyra's please nerf her, and at other times not so much. And I think that really those times are when you have a lot of good organization, a lot of good dive. And I think that, teams are prioritizing her for a reason, and that's because she is very strong, but she's not impossible. What surprises me is when teams don't ban Tiamat because, I mean, like even at the top level, right? You can't stop her. She's just got so much in that kit, and she's such a pain to deal with. But with gods like Morgan, Le Fay being available, and Tiamat, once you have to use bans on those gods, that leaves somebody like Yamoja up, and Yamoja probably one of the more impactful guardians in competitive Smite.
Yeah, those just giant rivers rebuke walls are. There are only so many jumps in the game, and Yamoja is really good at keeping those people without those jumps in those walls. But aggro dashes only have decided, well, actually, I'll just walk through the wall because they're hovering this Osiris here. Actually, gonna lock that one in as well. Kind of one of these definitely newer flavor of the month picks. It almost seems like the jungle for him has been absolutely next level. It's been a really, really strong jungle pick and can still go in solo and do perfectly fine, as well as a soul who has a little bit of flex potential as well there. Can go to that mid lane and just be a pure burst mage. Or can go into the ADC carry and get a little bit of both going on there. Some auto attack shred as well as some burst potential.
Yeah, Soul pretty good right now. Huge flex potential as you mentioned. Probably going to see her in mid. She just seems so strong in the mid lane for one reason or another. She's still strong in that duo lane, but I think that the potential to have a soul and then another hunter and then like a Fafnir support, it really allows you to run the map and take objectives with these. And you talked about this Osiris. Osiris, once in a while you'd see him pop up, but now it seems like he's getting a lot more love. And he's just very strong, I think, right now, and that's a great pickup, especially when you're looking at somebody like Yamoja, who has a little bit of healing, and Osiris has some anti-heal in his kit. Cernanos being hovered. That's an interesting pick. Not something you always see.
Yeah, fancy pick there to definitely say. I think the general consensus by people is his 2 and 3 are great. The Bramble and the Dash are fun and great. His 1 sometimes situational, but his ult seems almost negligible. Like it doesn't exist in team fights. So an interesting selection there, especially with some of these other hunters available that are these Silver Branch abusers, since that really just is what everybody has felt like building here. But I mean, we glance over this here. The Tsukiyomi picked here in this fourth slot here. I don't think anybody's ever being mad about that one. Tsukiyomi just such a strong presence there. Just such a great assassin that has all the damage you could ever want with some CC on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's very, very good at diving. That is for sure. The problem is that he is all about diving and he is a full commit god. And so you're going to have a little bit of support. They're going to have to pick up a pretty strong solo laner to be able to dive with Atsuki because you don't want to leave him high and dry, just ulting in with those laser beams, right? So you have to be kind of focused on that. So I'm interested to see what solo laner Gridlock opts for here, and they Aggro's Dash just did end up picking up that Fafnir, and I think that that's a great pickup. I'm excited to see what hunter they match it with this soul, and it seems like with Osiris, you can build a little bit of auto attack damage as well, and so they've got a lot of objective shred potential. Maybe not
Yeah,
so much secure.
it does really look here like aggro dashes have a game plan that they're coming in with, and they are sticking to it no matter what. Because I don't know if you're on the side of Gridlock here, what you can really ban necessarily to try to stop this, objective shred kind of comp that's going on, like you mentioned. Like, what exactly do you try to get away here? But one before I finish that question, just want to throw out here, Raijin is the ban here for aggro dashes only, so they're going to be looking here a little bit for that mid lane.
Yeah, speaking of mid laners, you could always pick up a Neath. She's got a little auto attack reduction in her kit. Uh, Not that I would actually pick up the Neath, but you're looking for something. The thing that's really makes these double hunters with, well, not magical hunter with a physical hunter, sort of style soul. It's mage, but really a magic hunter, right? I think if you look at her, uh, the fact that they removed the ability to stack these auto attack speed reduction items, I think that really makes these more viable, these comps, because what can you do? I mean, you can build a Witchblade, right? And that's going to give you a little bit of attack speed reduction, but that's about it. And then you could pick like a Neath. And I don't think very many people are looking to pick the Neath, even though I do enjoy seeing a little Neath gameplay myself.
Zeros being probably the sole Neath player left in the high levels of Smite there. But I keep making a great point that with that just the changes to how auto attack slowing works, you can't
Mhm.
stack the Witchblade plus the mid guardian. It really as you mentioned, it really allows these objective shred comps to kind of just get in there and do things that they want to do without just about any counter, it feels like here. But these bans are going to rep them out here. Gridlock here, going to ban out the Apollo and Rama, looking at some of those attack speed hunters, trying to, slow down some of that Silver Branch stacks for sure. And Aggro Dash is only going to ban the Raijin and the Morrigan here, not wanting to see any of these transformations go away. But Aggro Dashes are going to go the way of the Chiron, which is interesting because he definitely fell off after everybody decided bow build.
Yeah, he's still pretty viable, still pretty strong. Obviously, he's not the best bow abuser, right? But you can still play him. He still has the same things that he had before. I think you're probably not going to see that Bluestone Transcendence build, which was what really put him up there in that upper echelon. But still, he's very solid. And I think that a lot of times when people think of, you know, picks, they're thinking, okay, what's the most meta pick? But that's not necessarily what you want in comp. Sometimes it's just more of a team comp thing, or maybe you want something very specific like a cleanse that Chiron offers, or even maybe his ultimate, extra survivability.
I think that cleanse there is definitely something to look at here on the side of that Chiron, because that cleanse is going to be very, very helpful on the front slash back end, I think, of this Fafnir ultimate, because you can get very, very, very caught out on that back end of that ultimate. So having that Chiron able to kind of anti CC there might actually help a little bit, but won't really know till you get in the game, to be completely honest. But Fenrir here gonna be the pick for Gridlock, as well as the Scylla's gonna go in the mid lane. And Fenrir, another one of those junglers that has gotten a lot of attention and love, it feels like, over these past couple of just weeks alone here. Definitely one of the most played junglers, it seems, at the moment in the SPL and SCC level.
Yeah, Fenrir is just strong everywhere, right? Yeah, he's good in ranked. He's good in comp. He offers kind of different things for different people too, different play styles. You can see him in some of those hybrid builds. You can see him with the damage. I've seen him frag out on the crit builds, which you wouldn't think is good on Kyra or on Fenrir, but somehow crit makes it work, right? And I think that in comp specifically, one of the strongest things that Fenrir offers is that ability to find a pick, to make a pick happen, right? You can literally go into the other enemy team, ultimate, get your CC immunity, grab one of them, drag them all the way back to your team, and you've lost nothing for it. And you just now you have a 4v5. And I think that that's maybe why we're seeing a lot of people value this Fenrir so highly in again all levels of Smite comp, casuals, ranked. He's just a very good pick.
Yeah, I think on top of that, he has a really good matchup into that Fafnir, specifically Fafnir falling out of the ult, going into the ult. Easy, easy grab there. And on top of
Yeah.
that, you're forcing basically an entire team to grab beads unless you want to be the sole target for
Mhm.
all, 30 something minutes of play there. But finishing out this draft here, aggro dashers only are going to pick up this Ravana. So it looks like this Osiris is most likely going to go to the solo lane. You never know if people want to mix it up here. But after looking at these picks and bans here, Dino, I'm curious, where are you leaning towards? Because I think I'm leaning a little bit here more towards Gridlock, to be completely honest. I kind of like their pseudo pick somebody and blow them up kind of comp.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you on this one. I think that, pressure and kill potential, I think, are very, very strong factors in Smite. And you look at aggro dashes only, they have a bit more of a PvE mindset going into it. So I think that as long as Gridlock can sort of push the early game aggression, they're certainly going to come out ahead.
Well, will the double assassin comp out of Gridlock beat the auto attack PvE centric aggro dashes only? There is only one way to tell, and that is to jump into the game with Frog and the voiceless one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thanatos. This is the voiceless one. Joining me today is Frog. We're watching this epic match between the Plat division of the AGL, Gridlock versus Aggro Dashes only. Starting out here, Frog, want to talk to you really quick before match gets underway about these differing jungle builds between the Osiris and the Fenrir. What do you think about the early transcendence on the Fenrir?
Well, I think those are actually the solo laners that we're seeing right there. So those are Osiris and Fenrir going to be starting in the solo lane. But I will comment on the build. So that is a little bit interesting. Charge Morningstar coming out of the Fenrir, looking to probably be an early transcendence. And judging, we're also seeing a fighter's mask out of the Osiris. That's more standard. Both have a little bit of power. Neither provides any defense. So I think early on in the laning phase, you're going to see similar trades. You're still going to see Osiris coming out of those trades ahead because he's just a naturally more tanky character. We might even see an early solo kill here. Fenrir forced to jump away. But What I do like about this build is that Fenrir is likely going to go to that Transcendence, and then he really doesn't have to build more power for a long period of time. I mean, the stack Transcendence is somewhere around 70 power, and you keep stacking that power up, the more mana you get out of some of your more defensive items late game. So he can build that Transcendence and then follow it with 3 defensive items and still be a real threat in these team fights.
Yeah, I didn't look too closely. I just assumed Fenrir was going to play the jungle. I think because of this exact scenario right here, I think early game, this Fenrir is just going to be absolutely bullied by the Osiris.
Yeah, he was really struggling taking that fight in the early laning phase. I'm not sure why he stepped up to that wave. I think he got punished pretty heavily for it, but we do see the Tsukiyomi versus the Ravana on the jungle matchup, and that was one that surprised me a little bit as well. Neither character is one that we've been seeing a ton of. Ravana hasn't been picked really anywhere in quite a while outside of some comfort picks we've seen in the SPL, specifically out of Scary D. There's some poke in the mid lane here, but I think the Tsukiyomi as well, not seeing a ton of him since we saw his real stay at the top of the meta towards the beginning of Season 8. And so I'm a little surprised to see these two junglers come out, but likely comfort picks, right? Comfort is king, especially when you're outside the top level, so I can definitely appreciate what they're going for right now, and I'm really looking for Ravana to capitalize on his early pressure here, but it might be Fenrir falling for first blood, like you were talking about early, not able to find success there in the solo lane early on.
First kill going the way of Aggro dashes only. They're going to pick up a little bit of extra gold, help themselves in the early game, and a little bit more aggression is coming out here. I would definitely say that Gridlock are coming out on the upper side of this fight here in the duo lane. Fafnir looking to aggress just a little bit more onto the Umoja, but they're going to escape back underneath their tower with no problems whatsoever. No kills going either way in this duo lane just yet. We did see that Gilded Arrow coming out on the Ravana. What do you think about that, going for that starter item as opposed to something a little bit more, I don't know, a little more meta, I would say? I guess I don't feel like we see Gilded Arrow all that much on jungle.
So Gilded Arrow, I think, is actually on the Soul. I think our production may have just hovered on the Soul while we were talking about Ravana, so a little mix up there. But I don't like it on the Soul either. Truth be told, I would have preferred a Vampiric Shroud. I think the lifesteal build on, characters that make good use of lifesteal already have some healing like the Soul is definitely a beneficial build. Not to mention, Soul can't really utilize one of the upgrades on Gilded Arrow here. One of those upgrades is going to give you physical crit chance, which Soul, obviously as a magical ADC, can't make use of. So she's bottlenecked into that one other upgrade as opposed to something like the Sacrificial Shroud, which, like from a typical Soul build, I would have liked to see a little bit more. So I'm not a huge fan of the start here out of her.
Who do you like better in this mid lane, just based purely on a kit perspective, the Scylla or the Soul?
Absolutely the Soul, but I think that they can help out in each other's comps. Really, it's really specific based on what else you have around you, right? The Soul, of course, is better for her team because you have the Fafnir, you have those 3 other auto attack based characters, but I'll hold that thought as it looks like Ravana is coming in for a gank and Tsukiyomi's following him.
He's gonna blink in, he's gonna miss his, unfortunately, gonna miss that opening ability. So both the Cernunos and the Emoji are gonna get themselves out safely as the next minion wave comes in. They're gonna be able to peel themselves out to safety, but the Tsukiyomi is there, potentially looking for some counter aggression as they steal away an XP camp kind of in the middle there, not really super in favor of either team in the jungle. Gonna decide better of the aggression as the Fafnir will aggress onto the Cernunos in the duo lane, though. I think this is just classic duo lane skirmishing. Oh, unfortunate River's Rebuke. They're not gonna catch anybody. Rest in peace.
Yeah, Fafnir just barely slipping out of that one on the sides. As both junglers have now spent a long time over here on this duo side of the map, not really getting much farm, especially for this Tsukiyomi. Ravana's managed to get both Alpha Harpies. He got the Oracles in between that fight right there. But Tsukiyomi just spent a lot of time standing around. That's going to give him probably a half a level drop here, as Soul getting off some good poke in the mid lane. But I'll return to my point about that Soul versus the Scylla. The Soul favoring the auto attack heavy composition, right? She's going to have a Shoguns to help her out. She's going to have the Fafnir to buff her out. But she will also have the kill on Scylla here, invading a red buff. So unfortunately, they didn't manage to get that red buff, but they were there on the timer. So they should have it for next time. I expect to see them continue focus towards that left side aggression.
I think in a big way, early game, definitely going the way of Aggro dashes only. Even before that second kill coming in, they were up about 1,000 gold, 1,500. And the XP lead was also in their favor as well. See, you can see the drop in the really significant drop in XP and gold right as that Scylla kill comes in. But even before that, they were in the lead in quite a big way. I think just Aggro Dash is only winning their lanes across the board in all ways here in the early game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have seen some of these players before in some of our AGL matches. 12 Gauge in particular is a jungler that I've seen in the playoffs of the previous AGL season, so I'm excited to see some good plays out of him. And I think that he's gone for this aggressive character and this aggressive start here. He's rushed the flat pan as many junglers do. That mannequin mace eventually going to be upgraded into that mannequin's hidden blade, a very, very powerful item right now. But you were absolutely right in terms of pressure. I mean, the only lane that might not have pressure right now is that dual lane, but if anything, that's sort of tied, and we haven't seen the supports really start those big rotations yet, so it could still be Chiron winning out in that 1v1 matchup versus the Kronos. We're just going to have to wait and see when the supports start rotating, which it looks to be about that time now.
I honestly think that oh wow, as we see a kill in the solo lane, Ravana taking down that actually Osiris swapping out of position, Ravana taking down the Fafnir in the solo lane there. A little bit interesting that he had taken the position. I think just giving Osiris a chance to back there. Invade gonna come in right here from the Fafnir. He'll get himself out to safety after contesting that jungle camp just a little bit. But I think that's part of the reason we've seen so much aggression and so much time spent from the junglers in the dual lane, because that's the only lane where they feel safe to aggress right now in the early game, just because of how handedly Aggro Dashes Only is winning the other two lanes. As I say that, we see once more another kill going the way of Aggro Dashes Only. They're up 4 kills to 0 at only 7 minutes into the game, but the Brutalize is going to come in from the Fenrir. He'll almost get a kill onto the Fafnir. Fafnir, I think, going to make it out safely. The Scylla has already used her dash. Gonna ult now, looking for the attack onto the fleeing Osiris. Not quite going to get it. So the Fafnir will get himself out to safety. Everybody looking, for the most part, healthy here. And the gold lead now ballooning up to almost 2,500 at only 8 minutes into the game here for Aggro Dashes Only.
And Ravana, excuse me, does not have this blink up, so struggling to follow the Scylla here. But now that her dash is down, he might be able to finish his kill. Good shell and good heal from the Emoja, but does not manage to save the Scylla's life and puts her in a rough position, as well as that Soul Ultimate will finish it off, and Ravana wants to keep going.
Off screen, we do see Chiron going down for Aggro Dashes Only, the first kill of the game for Gridlock, but I think it's going to be answered back in kind in a big way here. Oh, Fenrir blinking in from the side, catching Ravana off guard, going to take him down, but we still have a 3v2 in this fight going on right here. Fafnir going to ult just to get himself out to safety, I think purely using that for CC immunity and nothing more. Osiris wants more though, he's in on the kill, he's going to blink forward, the dash comes through, the jump onto pretty much himself right there, but it manages to get him away from the Osiris and underneath his own tower to safety. Everybody now back up and underneath the jungle in this sort of mid-game skirmish we have going on here, roughly centered around kind of the Gold Fury side. A little bit of aggro coming out from the Fafnir. I think he's just having fun being aggressive, using that high health pool that he has to kind of just bully his way into places he shouldn't be right now in this early game.
As you saw in the graphs there, though, that elongated fight does favor Gridlock. They get their first 2 kills on the board. They're able to even out the XP a little bit across the board, as Kern and both dual lane members, Umoja and Kronos, taking a 1-level lead against their counterparts. As you did mention during that fight, we saw a kill, a 1v1 in the dual lane, won by the Cernanos, and Chiron dashes in, but you saw that 3 basic attacks, and Chiron's already half HP, so this absolutely does seem like the lane that Gridlock are going to have to focus through if they want to continue trying to push this game and not fall too far behind. And that was a great hover by our production analyst, looking at that Mannequin's Mace pickup by the Kronos. Not a typical starter item we see over in the dual lane, and not really one that he gets huge benefits off of its upgrade, so I expect to see him sell that a little bit later in the game, but just pure raw damage coming out of that item is definitely going to help him win those boxing matches.
And I think that early game buy of the Cernanos Scepter is going to be a big part of the reason why he's coming out so far ahead of the Chiron in these fights. River's Review going to make sure that Umoja gets out to safety. The Ravana is going to be turned around and burned down immediately. Wow. Kills exchanged pinstripe either direction as everybody is aggressing onto each other. Soul Ult going to come in and clean up Rogue Pie. That leaves us in a 2-for-2 trade right now. If this Fafnir escapes with his life, I'm going to be stunned. He is on a sliver of health. As the Soul also chases the Tsukiyomi through the jungle, not quite gonna get him before he reaches out to the tower. The tower dive is good. Oh, but the attack misses. So it ends up being a little bit in favor of Gridlock there. They pick up 2 kills for 3 as the fight still continues. Wow, big damage coming out from Scylla onto the Soul there as she will escape with her life, but she is a little bit beat up, and I think Scylla has no intentions of backing here either. I think she'll just continue to farm and potentially maybe put some damage onto the early towers. So far, neither lane being won to such an extent that there is damage too much on any of the towers, with the exception of that solo lane on the right side. Tower almost falling in tier 1 there.
Yeah, a couple big skirmishes, one right after the other, and on opposite sides of the map. That one looked for an invade again. It's always started by these invades on the side of aggro dashes only. They try to get the blue buff, they try to get the purple buff, and they put themselves in aggressive positions. And oftentimes, both times, in fact, these skirmishes have ended up sort of trading each other, and that's going to favor Gridlock. They're waiting for the late game for their comp to max out at effectiveness, right? That Scylla is only going to get more powerful as the game goes on, but looks like Ravana might get collapsed on by Emoji here. There might be a fight.
Yeah, this looks like a trap. Fenrir gonna go in, gonna dash. He's on such low health. Holy cow. Gonna use the ult. That will get him away on 41 health. Woo! Ooh. And breathe.
Yeah, that was a close one, but they do manage to secure their own blue buff there as Kern tries to step in to steal the Draugr. Not a very valuable objective at this time on the map, and he might have put himself in a rough position, but not a ton of damage able to come out from Aggro Dashes, only to punish him stepping up there, as now you see him trying to go in.
I think using that early game damage, he's hoping to just burst down the slightly low-level Fafnir. As the rest of his team comes in to help, the River's Rebuke is going to go up, but unfortunately just a little bit misplaced, and Fafnir is just going to be able to walk right out of there using his dive. They will steal away their enemy's Lesser Scorpion there as a bit of a consolation prize, but all players now just kind of returning to the jungle, back to their normal stuff, not really getting the kills they were looking for in that little skirmish in the duo lane. Things looking a little uneventful there on that side right now.
Absolutely. Almost to hold that thought as we see a fight here in mid. Tsukiyomi coming around the edge, doing a lot of damage to Ravana after even picking up the Scylla, and they have a lot of healthy health bars here as the enemies are both forced out of the fight. I was going to say this could be an opportunity for the Gold Fury, but that Greater Scorpion still on the map. Looks like they're going to take advantage of that now.
Yeah, a little interesting. We're at 13.5 minutes in, and still both Greater Scorpions on either side of the map untaken. But I suppose that might just be a symptom of so much aggression that we've had here in the early game. I think every time one of the teams may have been looking to go for that, there was one of those scuffles when an invade, and just nobody feeling comfortable enough to go for that yet.
Absolutely, and we still see aggression over towards this blue buff side. Osiris doing some proxying right now. Looks like he's still going to try and invade this blue buff. Still has a 3-level lead, maybe a 2-level lead over in that soul lane, putting some pressure onto this Fenrir. 2-level lead, excuse me. But you look at this build, he rushed into the Ichavolt, right? And he's looking to box these hunters and these mages on the side of the enemy team. He really wants to take these fights, get in their face, and steal away power while giving it to himself. But such an aggressive start to that build. I mean, Benevolence is still going to be a popular choice there in the soul lane. I'm not super surprised to see that, especially if you are having those other aggressive items you want to get in there first. But he's still continuing with the aggression with this Berserker Shield. He doesn't have a single dedicated defense item out of his build yet, but I expect him to go into that animosity. I mean, he's going to be hitting hard in the late game. Expect Fafnir to maybe look to give his coerce onto the Osiris, diving a carry, and I mean, they're going to die quickly.
I think it's really interesting. You can see kind of the two schools of thought, the old versus new, right here in the hunter builds. You've got full bow build coming out for Kernunos, and you've got the Chiron, who's kind of building a little bit ability based. He's got some lifesteal with that Aussie, so it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up playing out as the match goes on. Whether the new way of thought is better than the old way. Maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit by going straight into full bow build so far in the current patch. We'll have to see.
Absolutely, we'll see Ravana raiding around this corner, tries to poke the soul a little bit, but I think thrown off by the fact that Emoja was standing right next to her. So He's going to be forced to back up there as Osiris just backed, and he might be looking for a rotation here. Yeah, you see him going towards the left side of the map. He's going to walk up the mid lane. There might be some positioning around a Gold Fury fight soon here. We'll see if Fenrir is able to join them as well, as this might turn into an engage before they can get here.
Yeah, I think Aggro only their plan was to set up an ambush sort of fight around this Gold Fury. A couple of players for Gridlock backing, so Gridlock not really interested in taking that fight at the moment. They're just going to back away, and the Gold Fury will be pulled immediately by Aggro only. Gridlock are a little bit out of position. I think they can get here just in time to try and fight over it, but not before Aggro uses the Soul Ult to secure it. So just a little bit out of position. They're not going to be able to really fight over the Gold Fury in a meaningful way. Holy cow, burst damage, insane coming out here and just melting arrow waffles on the Scylla. They're going to answer back with a kill onto the Osiris, but Tsukiyomi in the back lane is absolutely tearing havoc with the back lane of Aggro only kind of attack damage characters. Both going down here for the side of Aggro only, as only one player so far has fallen for Gridlock. That late game comp really starting to come into their own for them. They're diving underneath the tier 2 tower. They're going to look to take down the Ravana, who's still underneath his own tower. Tsukiyomi gets out with his life, but the Fenrir taking down the Ravana with that launch dive of his, and still 4 players up for Gridlock. That's going to be a 4-for-1 trade, and the Fafnir barely escaping with his life. Gridlock coming away in a huge advantage after that fight. Gold difference obviously still not in their favor after losing that Gold Fury, but XP difference almost 3k up. Almost, I think everybody on Gridlock now has a level advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, you see that shoot up. The only one that doesn't have an advantage now is going to be those carries and that Fenrir. But remember that Fenrir was down by 2 levels, and now he's finding himself even. And this is going to be more than worthwhile for Gridlock. You did see the guys of Aggro only secure that Gold Fury, but that does not matter if you're going to lose 4 members after that fight happens. And not only do they lose 4 members, they lose their speed buff, they lose their tier 1 tower, they lose the Fire Giant Greater Scorpion. They're losing a ton of farm in that exchange, as well as those lives that they lost. So a huge swing towards Gridlock, and you see the gold less than 1,000 now differing between these two teams. It is anyone's game. I mean, the next team fight likely going to be around this Pyromancer, and could determine anything. I mean, one thing I really want to keep seeing, though, is the aggressive plays from the Scylla, but I need to see it followed up from some of the members of Gridlock, of her team, right? As Aggro is only going to take this Pyromancer. Doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to contest, so small objective win for them. But I mean, you saw Scylla push up there and hit a solid ult, and then immediately lock Soul down to 2 HP. Well, later, that's going to be a one-shot kill onto Soul, but Scylla dies immediately afterwards because she doesn't have anybody that can jump up there with her. She's in such a forward position, and she gets rewarded for it. Like, that Soul kill comes primarily because of her actions, but if they can keep her alive and make her able to do a second or a third round of that burst damage, the fights can just go even harder towards Gridlock.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been actually keeping track of that Scylla in the... Oh, hold on thought, actually. Ult coming out here from Cornunos, not quite going to secure the kill, but Chiron looking to aggress back in, goes forward a little bit. Was that a mistake? Oh, he's looking to bait. His Ravana helps him out, blinking underneath, attacking the Cornunos, but it is not going to go the way of Aggro only. The truth on Chiron going to lose his life for his hubris. And the Cornunos, is he going to get another? He will!
Oh my!
You want to bully me?
Ravana.
I don't think so.
Ravana missing his overhead smash there, unfortunately, on the Kurnanos. And Kurnanos takes away the 1v2, killing both and nabbing himself that tier 1 tower. Impressive plays from him. We've just continued to see him win boxing matches and win pressure over in this dual lane. Continues to be the saving grace for Gridlock, as you saw him go into that rage, already having 2 stacks on it now, but he got those last 2 autos on Chiron. They were both critical strikes, so he shredded him. And hold that thought, Fenrir looking to engage on the Soul.
Like a huge burst damage going to come out onto the Soul. The kill will be good. Secure with the Scylla and the Umoja putting out some damage there, and they're just going to walk away happy with the advantage that they've gained. 40 seconds on the death timer on Soul right now, so starting to get into the very dangerous type territory where deaths mean a lot more, and going to pick up that tier 2 tower in the left lane. So handily going the way of Gridlock is that duo lane at this point, especially with how fed that Kurnanos has become. 4-1 and 3 so far in this game.
Absolutely, and we do see that animosity finished off by the Osiris as predicted. He is going to be swinging for the fences at this point. I mean, I expect him to maybe finish this build off with 2 more items, probably some health in both of those items, and he's going to be looking to take advantage of that animosity passive as much as he can. But even without the animosity, he's got the power from Berserker's Shield, he's got the power from Ichaival. He's likely going to have some more power in these last 2 items as well. I mean, he is going to be hitting hard, and it is a difference between him and Fenrir right now. You've seen Fenrir, like we talked about after that Transcendence, he only has the power from Void Shield. Both his next items are going to be entirely defensive items, and he's looking, just like we saw in that mid lane, to get those picks. He engages, he grabs someone, he gives his team an advantage before they start the fight, but he's not necessarily looking to box out the enemy hunter. He's not looking to stick to the Kernos or stick to the Soul in these fights. He's really looking to set up his team, create space, do a little bit of zoning, and they're going to start up the Fire Giant.
Start putting damage down on the Fire Giant. Aggro Dashes only does know about this. The Osiris is in range, and the rest of the players are rotating, with the exception of Chiron, who is sitting in the duo lane all by himself. I don't think he thinks he's going to be able to make it in time to do anything of value in this fight. They turn and immediately start aggressing onto Aggro Dashes only do Gridlock. They're going to put damage down, but unfortunately, it's the Fenrir going to be falling first. Fafnir on a sliver of health. He's going to be locked in, forced into the Coerce Hill, go into the dragon form, but then immediately get taken down, trapped by the River's Rebuke. It's going to go through and stun Osiris, who's also going to go down. The Soul going to be the next target of aggression as, wow, Tsukiyomi looking a little bit low on health, maybe punished for his dive. Actually, the shield coming up, keeping him alive. The Soul goes down. They're going to burn the Ravana down, and I don't think... Yeah, he'll make it out with his life. But in exchange, the entire time Chiron split pushing in the left side lane, he might get a Phoenix for his trouble.
Like he will, and no, he's gonna leave. I think he should have died for that. I absolutely think that he should have kept going for that, because he's in a rough spot now regardless. They could easily path along the top side and kill him here if they really wanted to, but I'm not sure it's worth their time. I'd rather get the Gold Fury. But I mean, one thing I do want to point out in that fight was Fenrir's actions. Fenrir was the first one to fall, and you're thinking, oh man, Fenrir, you're looking at a bad engage, you make the wrong play, and now you can't help in the fight. But he is helping in the fight by taking those actions. He pushes up, he puts Soul in a bad spot, he gets rid of Soul's immunity, and that's a key issue in the fight. And then his actions pushing Osiris up, making him forced to use his ult aggressively onto the enemy carries, right as he's trying to move past Fenrir, gives Yemoja a fantastic chance to get a good River's Rebuke, locking some enemies in, and they're able to shred a couple members of the team. But they don't end up with the Fire Giant. They only end up with the Gold Fury. So we're going to see another skirmish around this objective.
I feel like that fight goes up in the favor of Aggro Dashes only in a big way. Even though there's damage put down onto the Phoenix, you get a tier 2 tower for your troubles, and you lose for it. So I just think that positional play of having the Chiron stay where he was a mistake from the side of Gridlock. I hate that. That's the worst. You just really want it back, and they just won't. The minions just won't let you.
Yeah, they do lose a couple of members, but you're absolutely right. The pressure on the map now leaning towards Aggro Dashes only. Still a couple towers left up for both teams, and they're likely going to get this Pyromancer without any pressure. And there shouldn't be any pressure. This isn't a huge objective, especially at this point in the game. But their Phoenix is still on low health. I mean, that might as well be a downed Phoenix for all intents and purposes if you were to win a fight. I mean, if they were to win a fight, if Aggro Dashes win a fight, they can just walk down and end the game.
Absolutely. Ooh, big engage coming in here. Jump in. Gonna take down the Scylla on the side of the Osiris. He's gonna get the first kill. The River's Rebuke is gonna go through and stun the Fafnir. Counter damage coming through. There is explosions going off everywhere, but when it's all said and done, 3 members are dead for Gridlock, and all are amazingly up for Aggro Dashes only. The Yemoja going to flee, and this Gold Fury, or excuse me, Fire Giant is going to go the way of Aggro Dashes only, bringing it back there in a big way when it looked like they were in trouble after that previous fight.
Fenrir stepping up. He got almost close enough to try to steal attempt, but unfortunately a little bit late, as now they're going to try and just take some towers here in the mid lane as Osiris forced to heal up back as well. But one thing I want to make key about that fight, you saw the Scylla once again in too aggressive of a position. Pushed up, forced to dash away, but even as she dashed away, she was still in range of the Osiris follow-up, and Osiris just makes huge plays in that fight. Fenrir jumping in, trying to get some damage onto the Ravana, forced to ult out, pretty much just wasting his ult that he could have used on a Phoenix Siege there, so let's hope that Aggro Dashes only are able to take advantage of that. But Osiris, you saw dash in, or ult in onto the Scylla, immediately clean her up, and then get a 3-man stun using his tether, allowing Ravana to follow up with a big ultimate onto 2 members of the enemy team. Just really good teamwork, really good dive communication from the solo jungle combo right there, getting a lot of damage off all in one place. But the Scylla either can't be stepping up that far, or she needs someone to be stepping up with her, because if she's caught out that far again, they're just going to keep taking advantage of it.
Yeah, really highlighting what I was going to talk about earlier when that team fight broke out was that I've been watching the Scylla, and in those events where she steps up really far, it paid off for her once during that fight on the left side, because she, as you mentioned earlier, she got the soul so low that it was just a tickle kill. But other than that, she's stepped forward and been aggressive in 3 other fights, and every single time she's been punished for it and has been the first to go down. So I think your analysis there is absolutely correct. She needs some support if she's going to dive that far, because I just think it's too punishing to lose her that early. You need that burst damage in order to secure the rest of the fight for yourself.
Hold that thought. Osiris in a rough position here, trying to collapse on the enemies. I said it was Osiris in a rough position, but it's actually Gridlock who's backing off from this level 20 Osiris. All 5 members with Fire Giant on the side of Aggro dashes only, and it looks like they're set up to push down this left lane.
Yeah, I think they want to siege down the Phoenix, but before they can do that, they have to deal with this jungle scratch that's going on right here. Both teams in a bit of a skirmish. Neither going to come out ahead, just small positioning plays right now, but the end goal is to take down this Phoenix, which has, albeit, regained almost all of its health. So not the easy kill that it once was after the damage put on by the Chiron during the split push. So siege going through here, and Osiris split pushing down the mid lane, forcing Gridlock to kind of rotate back and forth to deal with both waves. I like that positional play here, adding just a little bit of uncertainty to the attack here. But as I say that the Brutalize is going to come in, the Chiron is going to go down to about 3/4 health after the Brutalize from the Fenrir. But during that distraction, 2 players from Aggro dashes only were sitting pushing the Phoenix in mid lane, and that goes down essentially for free. The ult going to come out from Fenrir and drag somebody back into the Phoenix, but it's not going to result in a kill just yet. Chiron going to make it out with his life, but the Ravana will go down to the combined might of the Scylla ult, and the rest of the damage was put on him. Chiron locked up and taken down by the Yamoja, and here in the exchange, 3 players have now gone down for the side of Aggro dashes only, and just the Ravana falling, or no, excuse me, not the Ravana.
Just the tanks remain for Aggro dashes only,
Yes,
and it was
the Cernunos that went down.
who falls for. And it was Cernunos actually taking a solo trade against the Osiris in the mid lane. And that really bodes well for Aggro dashes only as we go later and later into this game, because Cernunos really isn't getting much stronger, I would say. And if anything, Osiris now has the opportunity to sell that Berserker shield and build into a spectral armor if he really wants to have these fights, these 1v1s against Cernunos, go even better for him. But the fact that he won that trade in a 1v1 scenario right there really bodes well for someone on Aggro dashes only able to deal with what is right now their top performing player in the form of that Cernunos. But really solid fight from Gridlock on that left side Phoenix. They did push up, and Aggro dashes only did a great job by backing up off of that left Phoenix, allowing them to just steal the mid Phoenix away, and they could have full disengage at that point. In fact, I would have preferred if they did. But they step back up, give Fenrir another opportunity to engage the fight, and they're able to take down 3 members because of that and prevent them from getting any further Phoenixes, as now Fire Giant has not only fallen off those killed members in that fight, but it's fallen off everybody, and it's actually close to respawning here. And looks like Tsukiyomi Cernunos is going to back pretty soon, as we're going to be in position for another large skirmish here around this objective.
I want to ask you a quick question before this next fight breaks out. If you're this Cernunos, what do you do with that mannequin scepter that he's holding right now? Do you sell that and go for a 6th item, or do you try to upgrade? What do you feel like is the better play here for him?
I think you're absolutely selling it. I mean, it's just raw damage at this point, and so you can potentially upgrade it to Mannequin's Mace, and that's going to give you even more raw damage, but I'll hold that thought as they're going to shred this Fire Giant already down to half HP. Tsukiyomi's the only one in range. He's going to try and ult it. Gridlock with his ultimate, and he's trying to find the fight afterwards.
Holy cow, Gridlock with the steal there, the Brutalize coming through on the Fen. We are going to take a bunch of the players for Aggro dashes only down to very low health. I think they're all just going to walk away with their tail between their legs. All alive, unfortunately, though, but the Fire Giant does go the way of Gridlock, and that is the absolute opposite of what Aggro dashes only needed right now. They are in trouble in a big way. Ow, wow, counter blinks. Ravana getting himself out of trouble with his own blink just in time there. But this tier 2 tower going to go down, and now Gridlock, I think, are looking to siege this right side Phoenix. as many of the players for Aggro dashes only will be able to heal, but only make it back just in time to defend that Phoenix. Fire Giant now in the favor of Gridlock, as well as a gold lead and an experience lead, although everybody is 20 right now on both teams, with the exception of those tanks. But tier 2 tower in mid also going to be taken down, so looking to just gather up as much of the gold as they want and then start sieging down these Phoenixes, as every single member of Gridlock is still perfectly healthy. Got mana and health for days.
Looks like he did go that Mannequin Mace. Not going to give him a ton of extra damage on the Phoenix itself, but is going to increase his raw damage output. Mannequin Mace just basically an upgrade in both name and effects in terms of what the original starter item does. Just a little bit more tick damage on each of those basic attacks that burn damage. It just increases. I wish he had gone for a Poison Star, giving him a little bit more crit chance, much closer to 100%, around 80 or 85, as well as making the Osiris, who's going to be diving him, do less damage per and have less attack speed when he's trying to box him. So that's the item I wish he would have gone. Mannequin Maze isn't a huge detriment here as Fenrir tries to engage on the Phoenix.
Big dive coming in from the Fenrir. He could be in trouble as 3 members are now turned and focused on him. The rest of the players for the side of Gridlock are turned and burned onto the Osiris, who's been locked in by this River's Rebuke. He'll go through, avoid the stun, and nobody has actually gone down yet, despite the incredible amount of damage that's being spread out across everybody. But in the end, the Osiris will be burned down with the help of the Tsukiyomi. And now the players from the side of Gridlock are going to look for their next victim. Fenrir is going to go down, but we kind of expect that at this point so far into the game. And in return, he will get the Fafnir. But the Kernanos will exchange his life for it, so when all is said and done, it's a 2-for-2 trade. But the Phoenix does go down, so I think Gridlock are, I don't know if they're happy with that, but I think we'll say they'll take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely will take it, but I'm not happy if I'm them, and that's specifically because of Arrow Waffles on this Scylla, and that missed Scylla ult. I don't know if he caught it middle of the fight, but she missed that Scylla ult onto the Osiris, which would have granted her the reset. It would have done a lot of damage to Fafnir. She had a fantastic setup there. That could have been a potentially game-winning fight if it weren't for that miss. But they do end up cleaning up the middle Phoenix. They clean up some kills. They go 2-for-2. Unfortunately, that Fire Giant buff will now fall off of their primary Phoenix Siege guy, the Hunter, the Kernanos, and so they're not going to have as much push potential. And in fact, I would be surprised if I saw them pushing another objective of one of these Phoenixes here as they spawn back up. But I do expect there to be a fight around this Oni Fury, especially at this stage of the game, with this Oni Fury spawning up so close to how soon this Fire Giant's going to spawn. I mean, you see those timers are pretty close to each other. The Oni Fury is going to spawn those waves, which you have to address. You have to take out those waves. You cannot just stick around at Fire Giant and have a skirmish, because you're going to lose yet another Phoenix. Or even worse, in the mid lane, those Oni Fire minions are just going to knock out your Titan if you're not careful, as we've seen several times in the SPL over the last few weeks. But turns out I think I'm wrong with this analysis. They are grouping up to push this left side Phoenix. Looks like Ravana and Fenrir, though, both caught in the mid lane, so it might be a 4v4 off the bat.
I wonder if they're going to, no, not going to look to turn and engage onto the Ravana. They're going to let him get back to base safely. I think the reason they choose to aggress on this this left side Phoenix is because while fire minions are helpful in the mid lane, it is the easiest lane to get to and defend for fire minions. Whereas if you set a fight up around the Fire Giant and there's minions on the left side, fire minions on the left side, that is a much bigger headache to deal with. They're going to start burning down this Oni Fury immediately. And I think due to the zoning, the distraction from the Fenrir and the Umoja out in front just zoning for their team, yeah, they'll get the Oni Fury essentially for free, just three players burning it down there and going to get exactly what they need. But now the Fenrir needs to get out with his life. He will do so, and in fact, it's the Chiron who's been dove on by the Tsukiyomi who's looking to get himself out. He actually will not. He's going to go down. They'll get the Ravana as well. The ult from Kernuno is going to come out as well, and that's going to take down the Osiris. It's 3-for-0. And I think it may be possible for Gridlock to end the game here, especially, yeah, if they get the kill onto this Soul. 4-for-1 trade at this point, but I think this is going to be Gridlock closing us out at 34 minutes.
Yeah, and the Fire Oni minions running down mid lane right now won't even get a chance to participate, as they do manage to clean up this game in a clean 34 minutes. Well, maybe not so clean. There were some skirmishes that went back and forth on both teams there, but I can't give enough credit to the Fenrir there. I mean, just like you said, zoning for his team to get the Oni Fury, but he knew his limits better than anybody else on the map. I mean, he knew how much damage he could take, when was the right time to jump out, what he should be prioritizing in terms of his ult. Like, you know, there are a lot of Fenrirs there who pop ultimate, and you saw Soul use the Aegis. and use the immunity. And you know, there are a lot of Fenners there who are going to wait for the soul immunity and then grab the soul, try and finish off that kill. But he knows if he does that, he's dead and his team loses the fight, potentially the Fire Giant after the fact. So he just plays hooky. He plays around his life. He stays up for long enough to force the enemies of Aggro Dash's only to overchase, put themselves in a rough position. And Tsukiyomi also does a fantastic job finding Chiron a little bit away from his teammates, able to basically solo pick up that kill. And you saw that ult prioritization as well at the end of the game, gives 2 beams to Chiron and then the rest of the beams to the enemy team fights because he knows he's going to pick up that kill, and he ends up in the right position to help his team secure a 4 for 0 or a 4 for 1, I think, as Fender dies, but eventually the game. So very nice end victory for the Gridlock guys. And I think in that last fight, did we see Scylla step up out of position? I don't think we did. I think we saw her just do damage, which I think is what she's supposed to do.
Yeah, I really want to highlight Saugen there on the Fenrir before we close out. His slash line right there, 4, 5, and 10, doesn't really tell the whole story, because I think the game plan for him, which he executed to perfection, was almost to kind of be a sacrificial lamb. He was there to jump in and deal damage and you know, kind of just sow chaos in the back line and then die. But he does that so that his team can go in then and clean up all the low health members that he left behind. So I think the slash line doesn't quite tell the whole story. I think he played incredibly well there, despite the fact that looks like he you know, might be dying a little more than you might think is necessary. I think that's exactly the way he should have played, and I think that was incredibly well done for him. So
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's going to do it for us here for game 1. We're going to throw it back to the desk. They're going to break this one down for us. Hello, everybody. Say hello, everybody, to Dinosaur and Dr. Thanatos. They're going to break this one down. Thanks.
Yeah, a fun game there. Definitely had a little bit of a back and forth going on there. A little bit Gridlock won at the start, and then, you know, Aggro's Dash having a chance to really kick it back. I mean, any final thoughts here, Dino?
I mean, I have so many thoughts about that game, man. It was really interesting. I think that you look at like Soul building Gilded Arrow, and it's just early game. It was really good for them. It led them to get an early lead, and they were able to leverage that and group early. Late game, I think that it just showed its weakness on Soul and Mage ADCs currently. I think that something like a Vamp Shroud or a Pendulum would have been much better for that Soul's damage. The Mannequin's Uncertain was a weird one for me too, because like he kind of gets away with it, right? He's got so much in that one and in his first ability that you can get that life steal that you may be missing and some more sustain. He's not super mana hungry either, so I didn't love it, but I didn't necessarily hate it. And Crit's certainly still alive. I guess we found that one out. But as I mentioned, you know, Soul got that gelded early. You know, they started a group, but then a good response from Gridlock. They sort of prepared. They were waiting. They sort of anti ganked, right? They waited for the gank, and then they ganked themselves, and then that sort of led to some more leads. You know, you look at like, you know, Aggro starts to posture around that Gold Fury, right? The first Gold Fury, and then, you know, they get it, and you're like, what is Gridlock doing? And then all of a sudden they show up, they get 4 kills, they lose 1 person, they walk out with a 3K lead, which kind of huge, right? And then, you know, you have uh some other interesting, like Osiris was building damage, and that sort of allowed Scylla to not have to build as much percent pen, and now she's just doing big numbers, and you never want Scylla doing big numbers. No spectral armor was a very interesting not pickup. So yeah, I have I have pages and pages of notes, but I think at the end, I think we can say that Gridlock played that pretty well.
Yeah, a very fun game to watch all around. But that's only the first of many games to come here. So make sure you stick around. We'll have at least one more game for you here, but we're going to take a quick little break first. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the AGL Season 6 Relegations. We got another lovely game here for you today. This one will be in our Diamond Division, Team Fusion versus Super Troopers. And I'm Dr. Thanatos. Joining me here again is Dinosaur on this desk. And I feel like this is a little bit of a dumb question, but do you think
Mhm.
there's going to be any changes here, roughly speaking, just with this step up from Plat to Diamond in terms of, some of the picks maybe?
I mean, you certainly could see some changes in the picks. I don't think that we'll be seeing a CERN. I think that obviously when you're playing in like lower divisions, there's so many different factors. There's comfort picks, but not only that, but there's also picks that you want that are easier to execute on, right? Like Scylla is great because all of her damage is big, gigantic circles that are hard to miss, kind of. I've missed a few on the monsters, but for the most part, they're fairly simple picks. You might see somebody go for something more like a Tiamat or something like that. That might be something that you prioritize more, who's considered to require a slightly higher level of skill.
Yeah, completely agree there. I think you make great points. Sometimes at lower level, it's sometimes a little more about comfort picks, a little less about strongest picks. I think once you start hitting that plat to diamond level, though, that's when it's a lot more about good picks that you're comfortable on. And good picks that people must be comfortable on here. This Artemis, Athena, and Soul Bands here for Team Fusion, looking just like Game 1 bands a little bit, just a extra little Soul Band in there. Well, Super Troopers with the three of the newest gods being banned out here with that Morgan Le Fay, Tiamat, and Gilgamesh, all very strong picks in their own right. So if you're Team Fusion here, where are you looking? Are you looking for this Umoja like we saw last game, or do you think they're going to, switch it up to something a little more flexible per se, something that gives you a bit of flex potential?
Yeah, I think you could certainly look for the emoji. Emoji again, a very very strong pick. Odin also very strong right now. I was gonna maybe lean that way too. But yeah, Yamojo is a big pick. Unless you want something like a Ymir that has a lot of pressure and available to him. Odin though, very very strong right now.
Yeah, Odin definitely a very fun pick. He's kind of just came a little bit out of nowhere. It almost feels like to some extent with it feels like Final K kind of started the trend of Odin. Everybody went, oh yeah, he's pretty good, isn't he? So they just kind of kept going with it. So it's pretty fun to see Odin getting some love. It's one of my favorite picks there. But Super Troopers here gonna get themselves an Osiris and a Sobek. Some very strong front line going on right there. The Osiris being able to walk through those Odin walls, definitely something you're not gonna hate on. And Sobek, you're just not killing him late game. It's as simple as that.
Late game, early game. The one thing I say that Sobek does well is not dying. That is one thing he does well. Of course, he's very vulnerable. If you miss the pluck, you're kind of out of luck. Uh, Rhyme not intentional there, of course. But so the thing is though, you have to be able to punish that, and that's something that you might not see. You saw that kind of gold level last game. They might not do, but up here in diamond, if you miss a pluck, you might actually be out of luck. And so we see this Terra pick up here, and I think Terra is a pretty good pickup, all things considered. Yeah.
Yeah, another pick that's really been getting a lot of attention here at that SPL level. Her people are kind of remembering how ridiculous that burst is on that ultimate and that Earthen Fury. Just all it takes is 4 ticks, and the other player is just magically dead. And on
Mhm.
top of that, your entire team is being healed as long as they're in the radius of that Earthen Fury. I remember the days back when that was a global ult, and that was totally balanced and needed no adjustment. But we don't have to worry about that anymore. But carry on. Rama being the pick here for the ADC, a safe pick, another character that's been getting some more love, not even necessarily because of Silver Branch, with builds and whatnot. It seems like people have just been liking that long range artillery kind of play that he brings with that ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, being able to engage a fight without having to be anywhere near it's kind of big. Being able to steal objectives, I mean, that ultimate is very valuable, and he does work well with the Silver Branch build, right? He can use it. He's got that stim in his two, and I think that Rama is a lot. People might consider him a safe pick, but he brings a lot of aggression, sometimes that you don't expect because his first ability allows him to kind of shoot through minions, and so now you can't hide behind the minions to box and So there's a little sneakiness, I guess, into who Rama is. And we saw the Terra picked up who I would say is very good in comp, maybe not necessarily good elsewhere. Now another god, Baba Yaga, who shines a lot in comp as well.
I absolutely hate to play against this god because it feels like the second she has that stacking item up, and with those boots removal, she can start that up right away, and that's something really, really, really big to note. And it feels like she's just hitting so hard so early, and then late game she's two-shotting you with her potions instantly. Just throw one potion that you're storing, throw the other one, and you're just dead. So they super troopers here have a lot of late game damage and just frontline already off the bat. So if I'm on the side of Team Fusion, I'm already scared. I'm kind of trying to run away from the danger that is Super Troopers. But Super Troopers gonna focus out some mid laners here with that Morrigan and Raijin there, while Fusion gonna focus out some junglers with Awilix and Loki, but Super Troopers gonna pick up their ADC in this Anher.
Yeah, I think Anher is a great matchup for this Baba, Sobek. I mean, there's so much punish. Once they get a pluck, right? You're dead. You don't live. If you get plucked and you boost speeds it, that's it. You might as
Game
well
over.
just open up that menu and just look at what you can buy in the item screen because you're straight to the fountain, man. I think that's a great pickup. Anher also has his 2 is actually very, very good for peeling, and Baba's kind of susceptible a little bit to heavy dive, although diving a Baba never feels good because you just take a billion damage, so that's not fun. So I really like this Anher pickup. I think that provides a lot of safety that you might not think, and also even furthermore, a lot more aggression into this team comp that's already looking very aggressive.
Yeah, the backline there of Super Troopers definitely definitely scary in its own right, but the front line just as scary. But Team Fusion here gonna pick up a Merlin mid, and we're gonna see that Tsukiyomi again. Surprised to see that go all the way in the ninth pick slot there, to be completely honest. But Merlin here, a nice fun mage, nothing. I don't know. He doesn't seem like he brings the same amount of damage as the Baba, but maybe the CC is a little more what Team Fusion's looking for from that Merlin.
Yeah, I mean Merlin, it's a little different, right? Where you have Baba who provides those big number damage. Merlin's more like a slow burn, a little bit more map control, right? You have sort of your abilities with your purple stance. You can kind of absorb people, push people, but you could still burn objectives, which is really, really nice. Merlin probably, doesn't have great secure, right? But he has a lot of good burn to take those objectives down. We talked about that last time with like having that soul, kind of a little extra bonus. I really, really like the Tsukiyomi pick because it's going to allow them to get to that backline, allow them to get to that Baba, allow them to get to that Anther. And if they're standing a little too close together, now you're doing damage to both of them. You hit on her with that disarm, and it kind of becomes chaotic in the back, especially when you match it up with that Odin, who can kind of trap them into place and separate them right from their frontliners and the peelers on the team as well. So, and Fenrir locked in finally. We talked about how great Fenrir was last game, so I'm not going to go on too much of it, but just being able to pick somebody. I mean, you have a Fenrir to pick somebody, and then a Sobek as well. So there's a lot of pick opportunity, I guess I'll say, coming
Yeah,
out from Super Troopers.
beads are definitely
Mhm.
going to be something Team Fusion are going to be looking at. But will they have all 5 beads? That's the question, and the only way to figure that one out is going to game with Voiceless One and Frog.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thanatos. We are here ready and raring to go for the second game in our afternoon of Smite. This is once again the diamond set between Team Fusion and Super Troopers. And looking on early, not everybody has taken beads for the side of Super Troopers or Team Fusion, in fact, for that matter. So we may be seeing a punish for that in the later stages of the game, or they may pick up beads at 12. We'll just have to wait and see.
I do expect Terra to pick up beads at 12 if we're getting proper plays from this Fenrir early on. I mean, Fenrir does go blink, and so he is looking to engage. He is looking to absolutely get in there, and I'm hoping he'll focus this Terra. Terra choosing to go blink. Typically, I like Terras with blink, right? Able to get in, affect everybody with the ultimate all at once gives you a huge advantage as those team fights start. But one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is this Blink the earlier on in the game. I mean, that Terra ult gets more effectiveness the later it goes, the more fights that you have. And so Blink before level 12 doesn't get as much value, in my opinion, as Blink after level 12. So we do see a little bit of boxing over here in the solo lane, and there are going to be some skirmishes in mid. But something that I did notice was Rama coming out of base looks like he accidentally popped those beads. So those are going to be down early. We'll see if Sobek tries to take advantage of that. Even if he doesn't know, he could get a good pluck off here.
Yeah, only 75 seconds left on that, so he has a limited time before that will eventually reset itself back to its normal state, but a little bit unfortunate, probably just a fat finger coming out of Krios there. As the exchange comes out, all things so far pretty much looking equal in terms of build. I'm struggling to find any differences. Oh, there's one difference. We have an early beginnings of a rod, I think, for Merlin. Is that what that's going to be, do you think?
No, that's a book. Um,
No,
that
the first item.
the first item is Sands of Time, which is could potentially go into Pendulum of Ages. That's what I expect it to be, but we'll see. We will see the first kill in the dual lane there, as we didn't get to see all that action, but we might get to see the action over in the solo lane.
Odin barely going to get away from that dive from the Odin, or from the Fenrir with his life, but it will be answered back in kind. One kill going either way in the side of the solo lane, as the Tsukiyomi will return to the jungle and the Osiris will just keep farming his way up. Solo laners doing solo laner things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do see some quick action there, and I'm excited to see that because I do think it's important to shut this Odin down early and potentially give Osiris sort of a level back into this game. But now we just see Odin come back, and he's going to have a huge advantage in this lane, but it looks like it might be Tsukiyomi falling early, putting himself in a position to try and take away Osiris's blue buff, but look at Osiris just keeping him here until Fenrir can get here, and it looks like he's going to be taken down.
Yeah, I think very easy there to panic and feel like you're going to lose out on that kill, try and push one way or the other, but trusting your teammate, knowing that Fenrir is going to be coming up to support you and pick up that kill for you. Very smartly played on the side of the Osiris for Super Troopers there. Very well done. An early XP and gold lead, as highlighted by our production team, both going very much in the way of Super Troopers there, not far into the game whatsoever. So is that lead going to snowball into something bigger? Ooh, unfortunate pluck missed for the side of Super Troopers there, and those beads are back up online at this point for the Rama, so he will no longer be vulnerable. Unfortunately, not the same cannot be said for the Osiris on the side of Super Troopers. The tower dive from the side of Odin will take him down, and that will be a second kill going the way of Team Fusion, equalizing a little bit of that gold and XP differential as you see on either side there.
Yeah, hard to say right now, as I think what we're seeing is just some early game skirmishes, and it won't lead to any huge leads in any of these lanes, really. I think the big players you're looking at are absolutely these mid laners. I mean, when you're talking about the team composition from Team Fusion, so much, pretty much all of their AoE damage is going to come from this Merlin. So when you talk about damage on multiple characters during fights, it's going to be from this Merlin. As Tsukiyomi, once again, a little bit high, but Odin almost with the save. Fenrir jumping out of that cage, and now Odin in a rough spot, low on mana.
Brutalize going to come through, take Odin down to about half health, and between that and the burst damage from the Baba Yaga, I don't think this Odin is very long for the world. He will go down as well. And now, oh no, are they going to turn and burn down Merlin as well? No, he will get out with his life. Characters running in to save each other one at a time from Team Fusion, not going well for each other there. I think just a little bit of Tsukiyomi getting caught there, and unfortunately not able to get out even after the Odin cage was thrown up. So
Yeah,
a little bit unfortunate here in the early game, but things definitely not an insurmountable lead for Super Troopers at this point.
Absolutely not. But that's the second time that we've seen Tsukiyomi caught out in the top right side of this jungle. And you actually see the blue buff spawn shortly after Tsukiyomi falls. So it looks like he was looking for that invade yet again. Clearly a set of solo focused junglers here off the bat of the game. But I want to go back to what I was talking about before that fight broke out, which is these mid laners, right? We talked about Merlin being almost the entirety of their AoE damage. Obviously, Odin and Terra both have their fair share of AoE abilities and AoE damage as well, but it's not, I mean, Merlin's just going to bring everything, as well as their objective shred. He's so critical to what their team comp wants to do. And then Baba Yaga, just like they talked about on the desk, such a fantastic damage source coming out after the boots removal in the midseason patch. She's risen near the top of the mid lane role, able to just get such a huge power spike out of these stacking items first, as we do also see Merlin go into that stacking item as well to match that power, but we're absolutely going to see him take longer to stack that up, and as a result, Baba is going to have some more of this, a little bit more early game presence, I expect.
Attempting to come in here from the side of Team Fusion, but it seems that the Anhur is a little bit wary of it, had already backed out, potentially probably just from the aggression coming out from Krios. And now the gank has turned around. Tsukiyomi under pressure, gonna get plucked, forced to use the beads to keep himself alive. That is a beads down for the next 2.5 minutes. Tsukiyomi a little bit vulnerable during that time, and we know Tsukiyomi likes to dive, so that may be something that ends up getting punished on later in the game. As speaking of punish, we see in the solo lane, Osiris getting bullied a little bit by this Odin, as his teammates will pick up the Greater Scorpion on the Gold Fury side.
Yeah, just like Tsukiyomi has liked to try to be aggressive, so has Fenrir. 3-1 to start off on this jungler, and I love this build that we see him going into. I expect to see that initial gem turn into a Pridwin instead of a damage item. Tsukiyomi, once again, a little bit too far up, caught out in a rough spot, but he's getting Fenrir low as well.
Wow, no beads to save him from Fenrir picking him up, but it's the Fenrir who ends up going down instead. Tsukiyomi will eventually be answered back by the ultimate from Baba Yaga, but it's 2 kills going to the side of Super Troopers and 1 going to Team Fusion, so they are definitely at an advantage coming out of that fight. 7 kills to 3 at 7 minutes and 30 seconds here in the game. Super Troopers, these early skirmishes definitely going their way as more aggression planned here in the mid lane. Sobek gonna come in, no pluck just yet. He'll just get a little bit of damage off onto Merlin, clear that lane, and potentially look elsewhere to help. We do see, as we generally do, the Guardian moving towards the mid lane after about 7 minutes or so, and the dual lane starting to become a little bit more hunter focused, which is a little standard for this point. Odin gonna get himself out to safety.
Wow.
Throw down the cage. Uh-oh. He wasn't ready for the Baba Yaga flank coming in, as well as the Sobek, so that is 1 more kill going the way of Super Troopers early on here.
Yeah, trying to solo invade that buff. That's like the 4th time that buff's tried to be invade, and it's been successful a total of once. And even when it was successful, Tsukiyomi still died for it. And so I'm not a fan of their continuing pressure over on that side, but I am a fan of this engage in the mid lane by Fenrir. Look at this. He took so long to dash there on Merlin. He took 2 more ticks of Brutalize than he needed to. He actually charged that arcane second ability instead of dashing immediately, and that allowed Fenrir to stay locked on with the Brutalize, and I can't help but think that he might have survived if he had gotten off that flicker a little bit earlier, but they do still manage to pick it up, and they managed to get the beads. So now beads down for Merlin, just as beads are coming off cooldown for Tsukiyomi, so Fenrir's going to continue to have these targets.
Glad you highlighted that beads, because that will matter. Obviously, Merlin does have a teleport, but if you're stunned, that isn't much good to you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. He was trying to back off there, but I think one thing that we also forgot to point out later, or earlier, excuse me, was this solo kill that Anhur got over in the duel lane during that skirmish earlier. He's now acquired a 2-level lead in this duel lane, maybe just a half level, or 1.5 levels as Rama ticks over to 9, but he definitely has the pressure here, but now you see Tsukiyomi creeping up on him.
Yeah, and the Fenrir's coming in for yet another gank here in the duo lane. He blinks, uses that early, but Anhur may go down before he can even get there. That's unfortunate. Bad timing coming out for Super Troopers, unfortunately. He'll put down the Brutalize and then pick up Tsukiyomi, but I don't think he's going to get the kill. In fact, he himself is going to go down for attempting to 1v3. Fenrir's strong, but I don't think he's quite that strong, at least not yet in the game. And with that advantage, I think Team Fusion are looking to take Gold Fury here. 3 members are stacked up around Gold Fury, and I think that Tsukiyomi will be rotating that direction as well.
Looks like he is going to start his speed, but he could head there afterwards. But low death timers at this point of the game mean Fenrir and Anhur definitely going to be back on this side of the map if they try to take that fight. So they may stray away from it. But Fenrir, even though we didn't see it towards the back end of that fight, did still manage to get Tsukiyomi's beads. He's constantly keeping one of these sets of beads, whether it's Rama or Tsukiyomi or Merlin, on cooldown. He's using his ults aggressively, but his teammates and he has to find the guys who already have beads down and use that timers to capitalize and guarantee some of those kills. He's been doing really well so far. I mean, I'm happy with the 4 kills he already has, and it might be one more actually to the enemy side, to the Tsukiyomi, as they try to finish off this Osiris. Couple abilities dodge there right there. He tries to throw on the juke shoes, but they do manage to take him out, and that's going to be Odin now with a 1-level lead. Already a ton of power there and a ton of damage in his build. He's got that Mystical Mail online. He's got that Rangdas online. So he's going to be doing a ton of damage, and he's rotating for this gold fight now.
Yeah, and honestly, even though they're down a player, it's Super Troopers who are looking to pull this Gold Fury. They've got it down to almost half health already. There are a couple players within range who may be able to contest it, but they're being completely zoned by Fenrir with his ultimate. Gold Fury down to about 1/4 health now, as everybody is exchanging damage all around the Gold Fury pit. The first one to fall is the Odin, and everybody is going to just back away for the most part. No, Super Troopers are going to finish off the Gold Fury, not letting it leash, but on her will, or excuse me, not on her, Sobek will lose his life for that. So I think a worthwhile trade, though. They're up 3k gold, 2k gold.
That was really awkward, I think, towards the end of that fight. I like the idea. They try to pull the Gold Fury. They try to let the Fenrir out to zone towards the front and maybe start the fight. But as Fenrir comes back, as Fenrir gets lower on health and he tries to run away, he ends up pulling Team Fusion into this Gold Fury pit with an already low Gold Fury, but it ends up being the best of both worlds, as they're able to get a kill as well as take the Gold Fury, and the only reason they got that kill is because Odin was really low and left in the Gold Fury pit, so the Gold Fury actually got that killing blow, and then they got the Gold Fury off of what I think was a Sobek basic attack. He just stayed in the pit as like a last final attempt to steal it, and he does managed to steal it away, even though Team Fusion had 2 more members there. He does lose his life for it, but a 1-for-1 is, especially for your support, is more than worth the Gold Fury, so it does end up going well for Super Troopers, and as you said, they extend this gold lead. They still have this kill lead as well. The Fire Scorpion has not been taken down yet, so Pyromancer not on the table quite yet, but I don't expect the action to slow down. We've seen skirmish after skirmish from this team. It's now 3 members on the solo side looking for this Scorpion.
Yeah, they're going to take a Greater Scorpion on the Fire Giant side, get that objective up and running so that in a future team fight advantage, they have the capacity to take that Fire Giant when they'd like it. They also find an Odin who's a little bit out of his depth on the enemy side of the field. He's going to dodge the jump, but he will not be able to dodge the ultimate. He'll use his beads to get himself out of the teeth of Fenrir, leap over the wall. He will throw down the Odin cage to give himself a little bit of peel, but Osiris can walk right through that. His teammates arrive to help him peel just a little bit there, but I think the tick damage from the Baba Yaga is going to get him down to 0 health. And now we are 1 player exchanged on either side as the fight continues. Members of Super Troopers aggressing, looking for a kill onto this Merlin who has found himself way out of position. He will go down as well. So fight coming out in favor of Super Troopers as they find that Odin a little bit out of position in the early lane there. Tsukiyomi grabbing all of those laser beams onto the Anhur. He'll have to use the Aegis to keep himself alive, but it doesn't last long enough to keep him safe from the Rama ult. That will end up taking him down. So 1 more kill being exchanged in the final portions of this fight here. As we hit about 14 minutes, all the players starting to hit kind of third items on their build, starting to see what their plans are a little bit more online. Does anything stick out to you, Frog? Is anything being especially weird or out of place here?
I love the build from the Fenrir, as I mentioned earlier. I think going that Pridwin early, I mean, you see how fast he gets online to 40% CDR. That ult's going to be up so fast. And we did talk about that Merlin build early on. It looks like he did go that Book of Thoth to try and match this insane power curve that we've seen out of the Baba Yaga. And we did mention Baba's going to stack that Warlock Staff faster, as she did stack that Warlock Staff faster. And typically that's going to give her a little bit more early game pressure. She's going to have more power online faster than the Merlin is. But at this point, Merlin now has it stacked. They both have it stacked, and he's going to go into a Charon's coin likely after this, get that percent pen online to match her as well, and he'll get his cooldown a little bit later off of that Pendulum of Ages, I expect. So he's going to be swinging just as hard in the late game and shredding these objectives just as hard as this Baba Yaga. He's going to be able to match that damage output well, despite going for a slower start now that he has this stacked. As opposed to other builds, we do see the bow builds out of both hunters. Nothing too surprising there. Mystical Mail out of both solo laners. Pretty standard solo lane builds as opposed to the last set where we saw almost full damage out of the Osiris. So I'm much happier with this build as we see Fenrir getting dived on under tower, and they're going to commit to him, and he died really fast. I'm glad Odin made that jump. I didn't realize they had that kind of damage though.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit premature as soon as I saw him jump, but the burst damage that came out from the Merlin, perfectly timing the pullback using that arcane stat there, definitely getting the kill that they needed, and now they're trying to regroup just a little bit before they immediately decide that they would like to aggress onto that Sobek. He's going to use Under the Water to get himself out, a threat from below, I think it's called. I can't remember the name of his ultimate, but where he goes onto the map, he'll get himself out safely for the moment, but in exchange, he will lose the life of 2 of his teammates, and so now the man advantage in a big way going over to Super Troopers. They're going to take Pyromancer immediately and may take Fire Giant once this Fenrir returns, but actually they're deciding health bar's a little too low, gonna back before they do that. I don't think that means that they'll have the chance to take the Fire Giant, because I think by the time everyone gets back into position, death timers are up for Team Fusion. So just looking to reset, maybe set up for a skirmish around, so you can see a couple pings there, maybe setting up for a skirmish around that Primal Fury that has respawned from the fight earlier.
Lurking in the waters is the name of that Sobek ult, and it does allow him to stay alive in that fight and pick up 2 members of the enemy team. And now look at this, Fenrir is zoning once again. He canceled that Rama dash, so he's going to look to convince or engage on this fight as he get Rama's beads, and his team is going to pick up the Primal Fury for free. So good zoning by him, good zoning by Osiris as well, taking advantage of the Merlin not having beads at the moment. He did have beads, he just didn't use them to avoid the root, and he tries to use the Aegis, but far too late at that point, as he will be picked up now. So 2 carries, both have lost a relic, and Rama has lost 2. This bodes well for a fight in the near future around the next big objective. That's going to be the Fire Giant. They already have vision on it in the form of that Sentry Ward right there. They're going to have a bunch of map pressure if they get this tier 2 tower, so they'll have a Phoenix up, which is a route to push a Phoenix after they get that Fire Giant, and it's a route to end if they win a big fight. So this is really, really good pushing of their objectives, pushing of and using their pressure properly on the map right now. While they're waiting for item spikes, they're going to back, I expect, right here for some item spikes, come back and look towards the Fire Giant skirmish.
Yeah, very important that both relics ended up being used for the Rama there, using the Aegis first and then the beads, trying to get himself out to safety, and he still got himself taken down, makes that a very painful death. And it was really nice to see Super Troopers immediately decide on a course of action after getting those kills and push their advantage as much as possible. In the past, after a couple fights, they've been a little bit indecisive, I think, as what they wanted to do. And ended up just kind of backing and not gaining much from their advantage. So I'm really happy with that decision there to immediately decide to push down the duo lane and get 2 towers for their efforts. I think that in a big way helps them extend their lead off of that team fight and put them in a much better position for this this Fire Giant fight. They are also 6,500 gold ahead and 5,000 experience. So even though there's only 6 kill difference, they are absolutely running away in the stats that really matter here.
And it looks like they want to start a fight a little bit early. Terra pushing up, doing some damage to this Sobek, but until this fight gets started, I want to talk about some of these item spikes. Baba went back to base. She got a full Divine Ruin, so having that extra pen, going to be giving a little bit of anti-heal off the bat as well. And another thing, Anhur now has this full Kins on that back, so going to be hitting the tanks extremely hard in this next team fight. But they're going to start up the Fire Giant right away, and look at where Fenrir is. He's behind their team, and I'm not sure they know about it.
No, he's ready to pull somebody who is out of position into their death. They're going to leave the Fire Giant to leash. It will return itself back up to full health, and the fight has broken out everywhere on either side of this rock. The first one to go down is this Terra, but there are low health members everywhere. The Odin will follow suit. The Merlin will go down right after that. There he goes. 3 members immediately die for Team Fusion, all still up for Super Troopers, and I think they're going to turn and burn this Fire Giant down immediately. Tsukiyomi staying in the area, maybe trying to attempt to steal to get something out of this for his efforts, but I think he's just going to die as well, and then they'll turn and take the Fire Giant anyway. Sobek forced it back because he's just so low health, but that won't matter because there's nobody in the vicinity who can even remotely try to contest this. So 4 kills and the Fire Giant going the way of Super Troopers. They are ahead in a huge way. I bet they back, heal up, buy some stuff here, and then look to siege down probably the rest of these towers and maybe a Phoenix.
I do expect them to get this tier 2 tower, as there's still quite a few members dead on the side of Team Fusion. I'm not sure if they have the time to push this Phoenix, though, and they will not. They will back up as you predicted, but I can't applaud them enough for how that Fire Giant fight goes. I mean, you saw all 5 of their members pull off Fire Giant at the exact same time. They all start it at the same time, they're all on it, and then Sobek gets a pluck, Sobek goes in, Fenrir is ready to walk in, and they all pop off the Fire Giant at the exact same time, coordinated, and they are all in the fight, and they win the fight hand over fist for it. Kill 3 members, end up securing that Fire Giant, and now they've already dropped a tier 1 and a tier 2 tower. They've extended their gold lead even more, up 11,000
now.
gold at this point, and Fenrir just picked up that serrated edge. Osiris is now an item and a half ahead of where he was on the Fire Giant, picking up that Witchblade against that Rama, which is just going to reduce the effectiveness of that Silver Branch. The Pridwin picked up just now for Sobek, and it looks like Anher's going to finish off with this Titan's Bane, but Sobek didn't even get the chance to pop that upgraded Ankh in the team fight. He didn't even need it, so he gets to pop it during this Phoenix Siege. So Terra's going to pop the ult, and it's going to be an even more favored fight for Team Fusion as they fight into that Terra ult. So I applaud their decision making. I applaud their ability to play together. You even see them right now. They've played it slow. They're waiting for this Oni Fear to spawn, it looks like, before they're going to push down these towers. They're not rushing through this Fire Giant. It looks like they want to end the game on this Fire Giant. They're really trying to plan for this.
Coordination coming out here for Super Troopers is absolutely just chef's kiss. They, as you highlighted, the way that they immediately all decided to re-engage onto Team Fusion and the Tsukiyomi during his invade rather than continue to burn down the Fire Giant was absolutely beautiful there. They're going to group up and take the Gold Fury, and even though Team Fusion does have vision on that due to the Oracles taken down earlier, they are so busy occupied, I think probably scared of the fight and also occupied with the Fenrir in mid and the threat that he generates, that they just let it go for free. And yeah, like you highlighted earlier, using the rest of this Fire Giant build, they're going to push this wave in duo lane right down underneath the Phoenix and look to siege it down.
Looks like they are going to push this down, but Fenrir is in mid, so he's not grouped up with this fight right now, and I hope they take this slow, but with their coordination that we saw earlier, I do expect them to play this patient, allow Fenrir to just get this free gold, don't put anybody into a bad position, maybe have them waste a couple abilities under Phoenix as they just let these waves push and look, I mean, they're waiting on these Oni waves. This is the coordination and the patience that you want to see. Nobody's overstepping. They're just trying to poke a little bit, but it's going to be a 4-1 split, and they are going to push on these Oni waves. They're confident in Fenrir to take this 1v1. They're confident in winning the 4v4 on the left side of the map, and it's going to be an all-out engage once we get this next wave pushing in.
I think that's a pretty fair assumption. So far, Fenrir with a 5, 4, and 6 slash line, while his counterpart in the Tsukiyomi at 3 and 6. So I think betting on him to win the 1v1 is a pretty safe bet, as that fight will immediately start here underneath the Phoenix. It will begin shooting at the Fenrir, but as say that his counterparts are all engaging underneath the left side Phoenix as well. Osiris deep in the back lane, having popped that Shield of Thorns, is also going to engage onto the Anher and the Terra. They're going to get themselves deep into trouble. And now, oh my goodness, everybody going down for the side of Team Fusion here. The coordination coming out just far too strong. They're going to burn down every single member with the exception of the Tsukiyomi. He'll get himself back underneath Fountain, but at this point, with only one player remaining, I think Super Troopers can just choose to end the game whenever they feel like it. Looking to play with their food just a little bit more. They're going to try and dive underneath the Phoenix to take out Tsukiyomi, but with the team coordination coming through, he's going to have to be pushed away. One poor player does go down, but it's not going to matter as the Titan falls, and in 24 minutes, Super Troopers take us to victory.
Yeah, I thought Osiris was going to survive there. I can't believe he survived the initial beam from the Tsukiyomi ult, but he does get taken down, as does Sobek, but that does not stop Super Troopers from ending the game right there. Just, I mean, you can't say enough positive things about that discipline that we see. I mean, you're never seeing that out of some of the lower divisions, and that's what separates some of the great teams from the just merely good teams. I mean, they didn't push their Fire Giant, or they didn't not push it. I'm trying to say they didn't rush it. They didn't rush their Fire Giant. They're not worried about it falling off. I mean, that Fire Giant lasts for a full 4 minutes. Right? I mean, you have so much time to use that. They're able to wait for the Oni Fear to spawn up. They're able to wait. They just stand at the front of Phoenix and make the enemy team wait for 3 full waves before they try and step up. And the enemy team doesn't use that time to engage. They're not sure what to do, and they let themselves be engaged on against Oni minions. And they just fall, and they fall quickly. I mean, you saw how dominant that Osiris was in the last several fights. Building that tanky build as opposed to building Ichavool in full power can definitely allow you to stay alive a little bit longer in those team fights, and we saw great plays from him, great plays from Fender, able to pick up some key targets with that ultimate, and just really good coordination all around from Super Troopers.
One thing I want to highlight before we throw this back to the desk is that our Baba Yaga was deathless. Frog. Perfect game coming out from the Baba Yaga. And I think that's a testament to the play of Yali as much as the play of his teammates, peeling for him, getting him out and getting him into the right situations so that he can get the kills when he needs them. I think that was just incredibly well done as a whole from Super Troopers. Or excuse me, Super Troopers of the Order team.
Is that true? I'm pretty sure Super Troopers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Super Troopers won.
Super Troopers is, oh, my bad, my bad.
No,
Super
you're
Troopers,
good. You're good.
yeah. So anyway, with that said, we're going to throw this back to Dr. Thanatos and Dinosaur on the desk. They're going to break this one down for you.
Welcome back for the final time of today. I am Dr. Thanatos, joined by Dinosaur yet again, and this time we have probably the most fun set, I think. It is our gold division. We're gonna have Swagnotronics versus BNXJaguar, and I mentioned it a bit in our diamond game. These gold level matches are a lot more about comfort, a lot less about top level picks.
Yeah, I mean, comfort is king, especially when you're looking down here, because a lot of times when you're looking at what's the most meta or what the best picks are, you're looking at who you're really just considering like the top level, right? You're considering that you can hit all your auto attacks, all your abilities, all those kind of things. You can get those skill shots off, right? And so down here, maybe not so important. The player's not as knowledgeable too. They're not going to be able to punish things as much. You look at something like a Kabrakan support, right? Kabrakan support down at this level has something like a 55% win rate, right? If you go into ranked. So, eh, you know, you you can get away with a lot more, I think. And it becomes a little bit more fun to watch too, because you could see some really nutty stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you see. I mean, to be completely honest, sometimes the meta gets birthed in this weird little gold realm of some random player finding some very strangely amazing build. And that is the most fun thing about this. But these bans so far, pretty typical for the most part. The Sobek ban, something that's maybe fell off a little bit, just the ban specifically. Character still plenty good, but the ban's been falling off a little bit. But Swagnotronics not wanting to deal with that. Tiamat or the set either, while BNXJaguar there are going to ban away the Gilgamesh in that Morgan Le Fay just taking out, and the Artemis. So these bans pretty typical across the board here. I think the set's maybe a little bit of it feels a little more as a target, or we're just not good against this pick, so I don't want to play against it.
Yeah, Set is kind of a menace in ranked, right? Because he really feeds on chaos, right? He feeds on you not having that sort of organization that you have in something like competitive smite, right? Something where you don't know where the set is, and the set's like on your Artemis in the back line, and you have no idea because you don't have voice comms, and your Artemis is not in VGS because she's trying to not die. Um, but even in competitive smite, right? Like Set's still pretty good. He's very good, especially at a level like this where maybe you're not as organized, you're not as familiar with competitive smite as maybe somebody in like say that diamond division or something. So Set I'm not surprised to be taken off the board.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a strong pick completely in his own right, as you mentioned. I mean, we saw it in the SPL, I believe, like it was either last week or, a couple days ago there, where the Atlantis Leviathans versus J Dragons, Panatom picking that one up. So it's definitely not a pick that is, a bad pick by any means. But Swagnotronics here going to pick up this Athena right away. That taunt and global pressure just brings, I mean, so much pressure across the entire map. It's kind of what the entire purpose of a global ultimate is. But BNXJaguar going to answer back with a big circle that puts a big circle. It pretty much is that circle on top of circle for damage purposes. So BNXJaguar there setting up pretty strong right away, I'd say.
Yeah, big circle energy coming out with the Scylla and Odin. I mean, Odin, we talked about in the last game, very, very strong. Scylla is never a bad pick, I think, even when she's not as absolutely disgusting on the amount of damage she can pump up as she currently can. In this meta, Scylla we've seen kind of fall off a little bit in favor if you look at like the SPL level or something like that, in favor for something like this Baba Yaga or Tiamat or Morgan. But I mean, Scylla's still extremely strong, especially at this level of competition.
Yeah, I think the advantage, or well, kind of the nice thing about that Scylla is she brings some of that late game there as that Baba. So it's kind of a, well, they picked a Scylla, so we'll pick our late game kind of mage, or BNX going, well, they're gonna pick a late game mage, so let's just pick one here. But I think a very, very scary thing right now here is this Awelix. This Awelix getting locked in this early, really scary for BNXJaguar. It really means that Odin is gonna have a lot of difficulties jumping into these fights, and same with the Scylla trying to run away from these fights. Even with that, with her 3, that dash, she can be pulled by the Wheelix since she goes underneath the map. It's a pseudo jump thing. Look, it's how it works, and BNXJaguar are gonna need to be, keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, the Sentinels is it's a leap technically, and technically you could a wheel assault it, although if you do, I think you deserve a round of applause because that is not the easiest maneuver to make happen. But Awilish, a great counter to Odin. I mean, you pull up that bird bomb, you do the leap, you get pulled out, and your bird bomb doesn't go off, and there goes all of your damage pretty much. You still have your spear, but that's not really what you're looking to do damage with as an Odin, right? And so I think Awilish is a very heads up play, the side of Swagnotronics.
Yeah,
And
it's
Ares,
definitely yeah, it's a good pick to get quick and early right there. I mean, before it gets banned away. But what were you saying there about that Ares? Because this Ares pick is a fun pick. It really can almost be a carry out of that support role.
yeah, I like the Ares, especially if they can maybe match this up with some more CC, right? Because you do have that Scylla, and being able to get those chains in and pull somebody into one spot, pull an entire team into one Scylla crush I'm a monster combo, and it's just absolutely lethal. But they are gonna have to find somebody who has a little bit more CC. Odin's not gonna quite cut that, so I'm wondering maybe if they can look for something like a Fenrir would be good to match up with that, or they're looking for a Rama to do a little bit of damage, kind of lob shots in from a distance. I think that's not a bad pickup either.
Swagnotronics here, gonna ban out the Heimdall and that Hunbats. That Hunbat's definitely a jungler that can bring the CC, so smart of them to take that one away. While BNXJaguar here gonna ban out the Izanami, strangely enough, and the Osiris. Izanami is definitely something only a few SPL hunters have been playing, for example. I mean, Panda Cat and Cyclone are the only ones I can think of, and yeah, Anubis Hover, that's definitely more important there. The Kernabog lock-in, yeah, Kernabog global, double globals out of the out of the duo lane, but unfortunately Reason gets the better of Swagnotronics and they'll lock in the Scoop Callin.
Yeah, some interesting pickups here. Chernobog not really gonna be able to get out of that Odin cage, except for using his ultimate. And if all of BNX just decides to stand in Odin's ult, you're kind of stuck there and you're just buying time a little bit, I think. So that's an interesting pickup. Again, I think that it matches up great with this Athena though, with this global presence that you talked about earlier. And that's gonna allow them to really just beat BNX on rotations. But we'll see if maybe BNX is going to be able to punish that. And then, we saw that Anubis lock, and I was like, there's no way with this Odin that you could possibly lock it in. And instead, they do pick Kukulin with a salmon leap so he can get out of that with a little bit of safety. Out of the last pickup, kind of interesting for me. I guess, you can get out of that taunt with his second ability there. So it's a little bit safer, not as susceptible to the peel. Might not be a bad pickup, all things considered.
Well, there's only one thing left to see here. I mean, will Swagnotronics and their Suku-esque Jaguar be able to beat the BNX Jaguars there? Only one way to tell. And Frog and Voiceless, show us the cast.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thanatos. Excellent throws there coming out from our desk team, and we are so ready for this match. This is going to be a slapper. Gold Games, best games. Am I right, Frog?
Oh, you are absolutely right. And I'm a little disappointed actually to see no wild starts out of any of the players here. We're seeing pretty standard things. I do wish that we had seen the Mannequin Mace out of motion on this Ravana. I think that's a little bit of a better pickup right now, maybe even on the Awilish as well. But Eye of the Jungle on both junglers does not provide any advantage either way. But I am very interested to see this Awilish pickup. I feel like that's not a pick that we're seeing super often out of people that are particularly comfortable on it, but we might be seeing that, right? A comfort pick onto this Awilish, even against an enemy team that only has those two jumps. Granted, the Odin and the Scylla both relying on their jumps relatively heavily, Scylla for safety, Odin for engage. But I do believe that we're going to see some engage on the early game here against the Awilish. The Ravana trying to find him early. Awilish doing the feather step, but eventually is going to end up falling there early.
Oh no, 2 kills. Wow. Early game for BNXJaguar coming out strong, getting 2 immediate kills in both the solo lane and the mid lane there. Odin going to push an entire wave and a half underneath that tower as well, so decent amount of early game damage going onto that tower. Gold going in the favor of BNXJaguar right now. Everything coming up Chaos team for the moment.
We do
Looks
see
like
a small skirmish over in the dual lane, but we will see if this is going to lead to anything. Rama and his support both trapped in the jungle. Ares has these chains onto Athena, but it looks like it's just going to be some poke for right now. But Ravana and Awilish coming in behind.
so far today, Athena does have 100% pick ban rate, but this is the first time she's going to get through the bans, and we'll actually get to see her get played. So I expect to see that taunt come in handy in a big way, as well as, maybe when combined with the drag back from that Awilish, potentially catching people that would really like to be running away and pulling them right back into the fight where they shouldn't be. Early skirmishes not really going to result in any kills on either side here. Ares just going to do his thing of throwing chains on people and breathing fire. Rama just trying to farm like hunters do. I mean, he's a hunter. They farm until 20 minutes and then they show up and kill things in team fights. That's what hunters do. Just
Yeah,
hunter things.
all they do is left click, dude. There's absolutely no skill associated with the role whatsoever. So you really get analysis out of you. I will say I am happy with the Athena pick as well. 100% pick ban rate. I'm happy to finally see it picked here. I really think the Athena has some great follow up on this team. Athena going in and engaging with that taunt's gonna burn beads, and if the Awilish is using her ult properly, right, getting in there on the back line and finding that engage, even with Kukulin known to engage with that knockup. So, if Athena's getting these beads reliably, Awilish should be able to find these picks even past the early game towards into the late game, right? And so typically Awilish known to fall off a little bit harder towards the late game, partially because she's so single target focused, but I think if her team is able to help her out a little bit with this beads burn, then she might be a little bit more effective there. But not to mention Baba going to have that immediate burst follow-up as well into those Athena taunts, which is going to be a lot of value for that poke factor. So I expect us to see some action on that Athena, as well as, not to mention, 2 global ultimates out of the side of Swagnotronics, both coming out of that dual lane. So I expect to see some fighting on the solo side of the map so they can abuse those globals.
Very interesting to see how this early skirmish is going to come out here. Kukulin running away for his life. Is he going to get? No! Wow, Odin not being able to follow up with his 3 to get what he's looking for there. Kukulin going to back, but the minion wave comes in, and that might afford Odin a dive that could finish off Kukulin. He's going to hug that tower tight to eventually get himself back to safety. So no kill going the way of BNXJaguar just yet, but a gank slightly coming through. Both players here in the dual lane going to collapse onto Chernobog. Is he going to go down? He's going to use that ult, get himself jumped out to safety, but he's still very low health, and if the Ares chooses to dive, he may be able to make something happen. But I think the Ares is just too low ult on his own to be able to do anything there. He's going to also be very low, and using chains get himself out to safety. All the abilities in the world used, and everyone walks away alive.
Oh, with that health pot ticking, he just ends up getting more health than he needs. I think Awilish missed a critical basic attack there, unfortunately allowing the Ares to survive. But so far, the only 2 kills we saw were early, right? That right mid-camp skirmish, allowing the Awilish to die. Ravana picks up that kill, and Odin still maintaining his 1-level lead and the aggression over there in that solo lane from the kill that we saw early on. And it's Ravana getting that Jotuns a step before the Awilish, partially as a result of that early kill. So he's got some room to try and be aggressive right now in any one of these lanes. The only lane that doesn't have any clear pressure winner is this mid lane, where it's been sort of just a farm fest between this Scylla and Baba, but we've already seen a good amount of aggression, a good amount of action over in both of our side lanes. So I expect it to keep up. Let's take a quick look at some of the things being built here. It still seems pretty standard as Athena gets that Thieves online earlier than the Ares, as we saw him force back to base a little bit earlier. So still nothing to come out that's too out of the ordinary, although I will comment on this teleport from the Odin might limit his late game impact, not being able to really use that relic in team fights.
Yeah, I don't hate it per se. I just question if it will come back to bite him as the game goes on,
Yeah, I do tend to agree there. I mean, I think it would have been more beneficial for him to get a blink, and he might get that second, but maybe a beads as well, especially since hit with his jump, he's going to be a prime target for that Awilish ultimate. But it looks like Ravana trying to follow this Awilish, going to hit the ultimate. Looks like he's going to finish that kill right there. That feather step avoids the overhead kick damage, and now Athena coming in with the ultimate.
Oh, Odin comes back in, but he's going to get, oh my goodness, dragged in by the Awelish. It's like she was expecting it the entire time. Picks up the kill onto the Odin, gets exactly what she was looking for when she invaded in the first place, but she's going to go down for her efforts as the fire breath from the Ares is going to eventually burn her all the way down, as well as teammates that came to help her. Baba Yaga and the going to not avoid, Baba Yaga narrowly going to avoid being pulled in by the Ares ult, but the chains are going to land as they tend to do onto Cucullin, and now he is in trouble. He's in low health. Tyrnabog is a little bit at low health as well. All players going to kind of shake hands and agree that was a good fight and walk away. But the entire time, we did have Rama solo pushing in the left side lane by himself, getting a lot of farm and putting damage onto that tower. So he has gotten himself a lead over the Tyrnabog for the time being. And the Odin cage comes out, going to lock into Cucullin. He's going to use a jump to get himself out of the Odin cage, but I still think he's too low health to be able to escape completely from this Odin. Odin abilities all down, relying on basic attacks, but they should be up any second now, and then he'll be able to finish off this Cucullin. The knockup going to prevent him from getting exactly what he needs, but the dive is still there. Dodges out the way of the bird bomb, and oh my goodness, the Juke Master Cucullin gets underneath his tower to safety. That was amazing. And off screen, Awelish going to get a kill, but get answered back by the Scylla. So one going either way. I believe that happened here in the duo lane.
Oh my gosh, you've been talking for 2 minutes at this point. There's been that much fighting at this. I mean, there's been too many skirmishes to count one right after the other as Ares caught out in a rough spot here. Taunt looking from Athena. She actually misses the taunt, but he still will end up falling for the Tyrnabog to get his first kill on the board. And we did see those global ults rotate over to that solo lane skirmish like I talked about earlier, trying to fight over on the solo lane side of the map to abuse those globals, but it ended up only being a 1-for-1 trade. But it might be more now that Cucullin renewed the rage form, rooting the Odin. He doesn't have his jump up just yet, but it might dive the tower for this as he falls to half HP.
I think Odin, will be able to get himself out to safety. Doesn't look like either player wants to dive underneath the tower to try and pick that up when he still had a decent chunk of health, as well as they probably had a little bit of a sixth sense inkling that there were players rotating over here to help, as this Ravana shows up to deny the blue buff invade. I think looks like the buff does still go the way of the BNXJaguar, so the invade not going to get anything and also not going to result in any kills. The Odin cage, oh no, going to lock Awelish in. She's going to go down hard. Odin going to be able to pick up that kill for himself there and extend his level lead over Cucullin up to 2 entire levels, starting to run away with the damage in this this solo lane here. So much so that even with the Athena here, he's going to opt in for the 1v2 and try and take a little bit of a fight here. He's not afraid of anything.
Yeah, Zixis not on the same page as his teammates, diving a little bit too hard on that Awelish without any follow-up, gets taken down right there for his 4th death of the game. He is 67% of his team's deaths right now, and as an Awelish, the early game character, that is not what you're looking for. And I'm not a fan of his build either. Going into that Void Shield will allow him to stay alive a little bit longer, but typically on Awelish, you're fighting for that damage. You're fighting for trying to get in there when you're not noticed. You know, you're going to allow the Cucullin to make space for you, and then you're going to try to get in there on the back end, sneak your way in there, and get some instant damage off and blow up a carry and the most damage you want for that. I mean, she's one of those characters that you find Blood Forge on, you're finding Hydras on, you're finding all of that burst damage and the rewards for getting a kill right there. But unfortunately, just choosing... Cucullin, lazy backing! Oh my goodness! Lazy backing in range of the blue, and Ravana sniffs it out, so they're not only going to get the blue invade, but they will also get the Cucullin. Baba fat fingering the ult as well, so a couple mistakes there from the side of Swagnotronics, losing a member and an ultimate, and BNXJaguar 3,000 gold in the lead at this point, and all of the objectives are up on the map. No Scorpions remain, so we could get a skirmish around one of those sooner rather than later.
It's a little kind of a minor thing to note here, but infrastructure also starting to fall very heavily the way of Swagnotronics so far. They've already lost the tier 1 tower in the duo lane and are on the verge of losing it in the solo lane as well. So that, that little bit of safety that provides, the gold that puts over towards BNXJaguar, you can see in the XP and gold difference charts here. Something that may start to come back to bite them as this laning phase kind of gives way to the team fight phase. Oh wow, the duel just absolutely not going away, just missing too many basics in a row for Rama. They're going to get himself taken down by the Tyrnabog. Little win that's very much needed for Swagnotronics right now. And ooh, the lazy backing, it scares me, man.
Yeah, that's the second time it's happened, and luckily did not end in death for him. But he's diving under the tower. Athena luckily tanks for him and does taunt the Scylla. She's already down to half HP, but she gets her beads burnt right there, and the ultimate is up, but it does not manage to hit anybody. But Chernobog can't finish off the kill either. Oh my goodness, what a scrappy fight. I mean, they were on the same page. They all wanted to dive Scylla, but they didn't use their abilities as coordinated as they could, and now it looks like Ravana wants to collapse.
Absolutely going to punish the invade here. He and his counterpart on the Ares trying to lock in the Baba Yaga, who is still very squishy at this point of the game. Damage scary, but the health pool not so much. Athena's going to turn around and try and protect her mage. Gets the taunt off onto the Ares. The blink comes in from Ravana. He's going to try and finish off the Baba Yaga. The Ares ult comes in, dragging them in. The blow up from the Scylla going to finally get the kill that they were looking for. And now all the members of our BNXJaguar are here to try and punish the couple players of Swagnotronics that weren't able to make it out alive. The Odin cage goes down. Not going to get any kills before it falls, but the Awelish is down to half health, and so is the Athena. They're all going to just back away, but players from BNXJaguar, very grouped up, might decide to do something a little bit aggressive here. Maybe just siege down this tier 1 tower. Maybe just going to use the split push pressure that they have to take the tier 2 tower in the solo lane, which they will get. Rama hasn't left this lane all game, but it's been working for him. He is running away with the map pressure here, and I think they look like they might want to set up around this Gold Fury here.
Yeah, with all this global pressure from the side of Swagnotronics, you haven't seen it been used very well or to success, but it looks like they did come away and steal that red buff using their pressure on the map to do that, and they're going to use that same pressure to try and take away this Gold Fury. Ravana doing a good job of zoning right now, not going to let Chernobog in here to potentially get a steal off, as it looks like he knows what's going on. Yeah, it is a free Gold Fury, as you mentioned, and Chernobog actually could be in a rough spot right now. Athena, I think, dashed this way, so I think it's going to be down. It is down, but it's canceled now by the Ares chains, excuse me, so she might end up falling, and just as it came off cooldown, Ares gets that cripple online, so she's unable to escape. So they try to face check it, but they end up losing a life as well as the Gold Fury, and BNXJaguar looked like they're running away with this one.
And that's rough, because as a support, you're going to be lagging behind everybody else. You know and accept that as you're going to be playing an Athena. But there is a 5-level difference now between her and the Odin on BNXJaguar, and that's terrifying. That's like, you know, kind of one-shot territory.
Yeah, I mean, Odin now has 2 full defense items online. He has a starter and a second starter in Rangda's Mask, and he's finishing that Shifter Shield on his next back, most likely. Whereas Athena only has the 2 defense items online, and that's it, as well as a 5-level deficit. So as soon as these rotations start to happen, she's going to be at a severe disadvantage to both the Odin and the other player who she's 5 levels down against, which is the Scylla, now looking like going into likely a Typhon's Fang is what I would guess, but could even be a Bancroft's, right? Capitalizing on this lead that she has, trying to get even more damage in there, as she doesn't have a ton of other lifesteal to capitalize if it were to be a Typhon's Fang. But it looks like Chernobog now rotating over to the solo lane.
Yeah, they're going to set up for a potential gank onto this Ravana, but he's going to leave himself underneath his own tower. They're going to dive and go after him, getting the kill that they need. The tower is also on the verge of death, so they're not that afraid of it. They'll take it down. They're going to pull Odin back in as well. The rest of the players for BNXJaguar are going to show up. The Ares ult going to show up and get a kill onto Awelish in a big way. Players all looking dangerously low on both sides of the field here, but it's the Odin who goes down, and there's just 2 remaining here for BNXJaguar. Aegis is used, but not going to really prevent the death of Scylla. It's just an Ares left alive. The Rama has finally left duo lane, showing up to help his team fight. He will get a little bit of peel, and they'll be able to get the Ares safely underneath the tier 2 tower. But I think, yeah, they're going to look to turn and burn on this Fire Giant right now. Swagnotronics want it.
And no, it looks like they're going to turn on the Pyromancer instead, but Rama and Ares still both close by, both high health bars, as Ares going to try and step up in the health bar. The Pyromancer still in range for a steal, and they are not going to take it away. So close on those Rama basic attacks going through the enemy, trying to steal that away, but Unfortunately, they don't get the objective and they do lose the fight, but it was only a 3-for-1, and that is just not enough if you're going to continue using these globals as heavily as you are. You saw the Athena ult, you saw the Chernobog ult to start those fights, and yes, it worked out better than it's ever worked out before. Like, I'm finally happy that they managed to, okay, they're all rotating over, they have the 5v4, they have the advantage in this fight, and they win the fight. That's great that they won the fight, but a 3-for-1 later in the game, it's not going to allow you to take Fire Giant comfortably, it's not going to allow you to take a Gold Fury comfortably, and it's not going to allow you to push down a Phoenix. So a 3-for-1 is just not enough, and the fact is, Rama's not going to be in this lane for much longer. He's pushed down the tier 1 and tier 2 towers, but he might lose his life right here. Wheelish actually looking for the kill early, and Athena ult is on the way.
He's going to get underneath his tower, going to pop the Aegis to avoid some damage, but it won't be enough as the knockup comes through. He'll go down underneath his tier 1 tower. They'll also probably lose the tier 1 tower as Ares shows up trying to assist, but is just a little bit too late. Now all the members for BNXJaguar are sitting in this left side jungle, trying to set up for some sort of fight here, maybe to avenge the death of their fallen comrade. The Odin cage goes up, going to immediately find and take down a Chernobog, and now the Odin, or sorry, that is not the Odin, the Ravana has got to get himself out to safety. Big pull into the Scylla ult, going to get huge damage onto the Athena. She's down to about 40% health. The burn from the both the Bird Bomb and the Fire Breath from the Ares going to get her down even lower, but she will manage to make it out using that dash. So avenging the death of their comrade, going to even things out, get us into a bit more of an even state. And if you need an example of how far ahead BNXJaguar were, that fight that went well, or that went very poorly for them about 2 or 3 minutes ago, they are still about 3,000 gold up.
Yeah, they're still maintaining the lead, but now they've had 2 fights in a row that have not been super positive for them. Something that I do want to say, however, is we're continuously seeing this, like the 3rd time I've seen in a fight, where Cuchulainn has not been able to use this Phantom as well as he needs to be able to use it. I mean, he's doing his job as a Cuchulainn. Your job as a Cuchulainn is to be in the front line, make space for your teammates, and potentially dive the carries, do damage to them. And that means that you're not next to your carries. And you know who needs the Phantom? Your carries need the Phantom. And by definition of Cuchulainn's playstyle, you're not next to your carries. So it's a little bit odd for me that he's the one that picked up the Phantom. And we've seen it in these last couple of fights, his inability to be in a good position to save his teammates when that Odin cage goes up. Right there, if Chernobog had a Phantom, when he gets caged, he doesn't die right there, but instead he does fall. But now, all 5 members up, and Athena and Odin are both in base, so a 4v4 for right now, but Athena can always ult back in.
Would you have preferred the relics if you have the Phantom on the Athena and the Sunder on the Chernobog's, or sorry, not the Chernobog, the Cuchulainn, since he's planning on being up in everyone's faces anyway?
I think that would have been fine, but honestly, I would have preferred Sunder Phantom from the Athena and something like Blink Frenzy, or maybe Blink in a second Sunder from the Cuchulainn, just giving him the ability to continue to be in the front line. Because, I mean, Sunder is such a critical relic on Athena. You're guaranteeing those tanks get double Sundered. You don't have to hit any of those skill shots even. You're guaranteeing a double Sunder on a tank with that taunt, and it just allows you to make the game plan of blow up a tank into the late game so much more viable.
Well, BNXJaguar can tell there's a little bit of indecision from Swagnotronics, and they immediately both pull the Oni Fury and start fighting at the same time, going to throw out some huge damage onto the Cuchulainn, just like we mentioned. Him being up in the front line means he immediately goes down. Now the Ravana won't get answered backwards, but we will also get a death for the Chernobog here as kills go just heavily in favor of BNXJaguar. They're going to take down 3. They're looking to get 1 more as this Athena is not long for this world, running in the wrong direction. She'll sacrifice herself to make sure the Awelish gets away safely, but they're going to turn around, take out this Oni Fury, and then probably while they're waiting for the Oni Fury lane to come down, I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe try and take Fire Giant as well. I think they have time if they move quickly.
I just haven't seen a lot of positive things from this Awelish. I mean, 2 and 5 at this point, only 33% of her team's deaths, but still the most deaths on her entire team, remaining primarily from the early game. But even in these late game fights, I mean, there we saw that she was the only survivor from the fight, and that's because she didn't play with her Cuchulainn at all. She wasn't playing around the space that he created. He ended up going in totally alone, and she was standing next to her carries and forced to run away with them, as opposed to positioning how you need to be positioning as an Awelish into the later stages of the game. I mean, she has that shifter shield. She wants to be using her passive, that those 2 items synergize, or excuse me, the Stifter Shield and a Wheelish passive synergize very well with entering into the fight in a sneaky way. Like, Cucullin engages, they use a bunch of cooldowns on him, and suddenly you're a Wheelish, you blink in, you hit a 2-man feather step, your, carries are immediately down to 25% HP. But if you're just going to stand next to your carries as in a Wheelish and run away when they get gone on, and you're not going to use your ult in a team fight, and you're not going to use that, sneaky nature of how you're supposed to be playing, it's just not going to be an effective pick for you. And we might see another chance for her not to affect the fight. So Athena gets caught out without her team. She's going to get taken down without anybody even able to help her. And Chernobog didn't even ult for it, and they lose one of their global ults, and Chernobog is not near the fight, but even if he rotates over, it's going to be a 4v5.
Yeah, I think their plan there was to have Chernobog kind of split push and then ult over when the real fight around the Fire Giant begins, but Athena just pushed up too far without any teammates, going to get herself taken down, and now he has no plans of rotating over. Another teammate of his is going to go down, and then they're going to turn and take Fire Giant, and all he's going to get in return for it is a tier 2 tower, and that is a trade you take every day of the week if you're BNXJaguar. Although, as I say that, what are you guys doing? They're chasing. I guess they want more kills. Thirsty. They're thirsty for more kills. They're going to decide better of it, pull back a little bit, and now start up the Fire Giant using the Odin to zone a little bit.
They did get off briefly. Baba got picked up as a pick, but Athena's now back alive. She's ulted into the fight, and they've left Chernobog in the backline, but Athena is pushing up to try and disrupt this Fire Giant. Now down to half HP, but Ravana knows she's there. They've in fact tried to chain her through the wall. She's used her dash, but Cucullin and Cherno now closer, and it looks like they have to get off of it as Cucullin engaged, but Odin's jump is now down, and it looks like it's just going to be a re-engage on the fight. They're giving time for Baba Yaga to respawn here. Ares very low. Forced to back is Cucullin as well as the Chernobog, but Wheelish now in a rough spot again. These members of Swagnotronics just keep getting caught out, and a Wheelish pops her own shell. She has shell, and of course she's gonna die. Why would you have shell on a Wheelish? You're gonna die, you're gonna get picked by the enemy team, and it continues to be a 4v5 for BNXJaguar.
Really don't like the move by BNXJaguar to kind of split their decision making instead of just immediately burning down the Fire Giant after that last team fight, but they make lemons out of lemonade just due to the fact that the Wheelish was caught out once again. Wow, Bird Bomb coming in combined with the ultimate from the Scylla going to get huge kills. 3 are now down for Swagnotronics. The Ares ult going to drag one more back into him. No, the beast is used. They'll get the tier 2 tower, probably turn around and finally take the Fire Giant. We've been waiting to see them take for about 5 now.
Yeah, we keep seeing them get these single and double picks that's delaying them trying to get these Fire Giants. So, but I can applaud that, right? I mean, if Baba Yaga steps up too far and she's alone, even if you're on the Fire Giant, you're not going to let her get a potential steal. You're going to turn on her. If you find a Wheelish at the mid camps and she's alone, and you're going to turn on her, right? These are all obvious plays from BNXJaguar that I'm liking them making the decision to get off Fire Giant in these decisions and look for those teammates. And they do end up getting a couple picks for it and the tier 2 tower, and they're still going to get the Fire Giant. So even though this is delayed, they're now in an even better spot than when they were going to get it prior to this, right? So they get the Fire Giant, they're going to pick up the Pyromancer as well, and after they return to base, they'll be out even faster. And I'm interested to see some of the item spikes that come out. It looks like Scylla's likely going to finish this Soul Reaver on this back. She did end up picking up that Typhons. And Rama not quite going to finish off the Silver Branch bow, but we do see a Mystical Mail from Odin. Ravana waiting on his back as well is likely going to finish off his Erendite, and he does. So now huge spikes picking up. I'll focus on this Erendite and the Soul Reaver as much as I possibly can because of how big they're going to be. I mean, Soul Reaver taking up a percentage of the enemy's health with Scylla already hitting as hard as she is. It's continuously Athena who didn't go beads. Athena is getting pulled by these Ares ults consistently, and Scylla is constantly in 3 separate fights now having this ult of hers lined up on that Ares ult, and it's just going to hit even harder, and they're going to be able to pick her like they did last time if she puts herself in just barely the wrong position. As well as this Erendite now for the Ravana. We've seen him ult in a number of times and have success already, so it's just going to further the play style that he's liked to been going for. But now they're pushing down this left side. They want this left Phoenix.
I think this is kind of the seesaw on which the game hinges here for Swagnotronics. If they can't pick up the, a Herculean defense here underneath his Phoenix, I think the game just ends here, and it is not going well so far. Athena already down inside the Odin cage. Tons of damage being thrown out onto the Cucullin. He on the verge of death as well. The Wheelish moves into the backline, but does so too late. The entire team just turns and immediately fries her alive. Chernobog going to be taken down underneath Yeah, oh no, going to be able to get himself out to safety, but they're looking for him, wanting to keep him from getting back underneath the fountain. They'll get him underneath the Phoenix, and I think they just move, take down Titan. Yep, it's a deicide. Titan's going to go down. BNXJaguar are going to absolutely wreck this Titan in very good time, ending the game in 26 minutes. And I don't even know what to say about the defense there. I don't know what you do as Swagnotronics that's different than what they did, but
I'll tell you what
it
you
didn't go
don't.
well for them.
I'll tell you what you don't do. I think the plan is not to just not be ready for it, because I think they were pretty clearly not ready for it. Like I don't think, as they were pushing down that left lane, I don't think they stopped pressing the W key, BNXJaguar. Like I think they legitimately just grouped up, they waited for Ravana, and then they just pressed the W key under the Phoenix, and as the enemy team tried to react to it, they just pressed their buttons. And they're so far ahead at that point with the Fire Giant, with the item spikes they just got over the enemy team, that they just cleaned up. I mean, it was essentially clinical from them at that point, as Bunny Tush on the Rama picking up a quadra kill to end that game after he had such a quiet start over in that dual lane, not being a part of the fights. He definitely shows his worth towards the end of the game there, getting off a lot of damage in those last couple of team fights. But I have to give a ton of credit, I think, to the Odin and the Ravana and the people who were involved in those fights on the solo side of the map, right? We saw these constant rotations from the global ultimates, the Chernobog and the Athena, coming over to this right side of the map and trying to win these skirmishes and come out on top and pick the Odin a number of times. And every single time, I mean, they had one where it went 3-for-1, but that was the most positive that it got at all. That was it. It was a 3-for-1. That was the best fight they possibly had. There were other fights where they didn't get anything off of it, and there was another fight where they just went 1-for-1. And this entire time, Rama's able to farm. Nobody gets punished for it. He ends up significantly ahead. I mean, he himself is 1,000 gold ahead of Chernobog, period. Like, there's no, like, 1,000 of their gold lead was just on Rama. That's it. Right? And so he's able to completely manhandle that lane, able to take down the tier 2 tower so early and give that gold boost to his team, and then come in, finish with a quadra kill. So really good coordination, really good, discipline from them to be able to survive those unfavored fights on the solo side of the map, and eventually ends to them winning the game.
Well, that was one heck of a game. We're going to break it down a little further on the desk. Here's us throwing it back to Dinosaur and Dr. Thanatos. Let's hear what they have to say.
Thank you, Voiceless One and Frog. And I mean, I feel like they covered a large portion of that one. I think a lot of it comes down to just questionable choices in terms of a little bit of like, I feel like maybe beads were a little more needed than they may have thought.
Yeah, I think that the gosh, I forgot the cast actually mixed up the names of the teams. So BNX Jaguars was the team that lost, and Swagnotronics won. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
Swagnotronics' team comp was much more dangerous than I had assumed, because what they did is they basically picked Ares after they picked Odin, and so now you, as a frontliner, have to pick between getting Blink or Phantom Veil or Beads or Sunder, like. And I think, you look at it and it just fell apart for them, right? Like the Jaguars, they it seemed like they had like an idea of what they wanted to do, right? When they picked that Awilish, like you would think that they picked the Awilish to maybe stop that Odin's pressure, but they didn't use her for that. They had Colin, who did pick up the Phantom Veil, but he was, he's a solo laner. He's going to be on the front line. He's not going to be on that back line. Not going to be able to get his teammates out of those sticky situations necessarily. And I think that, I think as far as why one team won over the other, I think you can look at Swagnotronics. They executed the game plan perfectly and exactly like they wanted to. And I think that, the first sign of hiccup, Jaguars sort of fell apart a little bit.
Yeah, the Jaguars there had all the pieces, but just wasn't able to, run through the finish. Words are difficult.
Yes.
They weren't able to succeed. That's the word we're looking for. But make sure to come back tomorrow, exact same time, 6 p.m. EST. We'll have some more of these relegation games for you to watch. But I gotta give major props to Glacier, Ted, Illicit, Sleet, and Narwhal for running these relegation tournaments. And of course, shout outs to all the players as well. That was from Glacier himself. It was an insanely smooth tournament. You guys made this such a great process all across the board. And on top of that, I gotta thank my boy Dinosaur here on the desk, as well as Voiceless One and Frog on the cast, and just as well, Narwhal for running the production. May have messed up those teams once, but you know what? We still love him for all the production he does. So again, make sure to come back tomorrow, 6 p.m. EST for some more relegation games.